Morning, everybody. Welcome to our special council meeting on strategic planning. Today is Tuesday, September the 26th, 2023. And I'd like to call the meeting to order at 9:02. And I'd like to read a public notice about the recording of meetings. Please be advised, North Frontenac Council meetings are recorded. By attending a public meeting of council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. The chair and/or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of the recording. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. The township shall not be responsible should technical difficulties prevent the recording of any meeting or a portion thereof. Technical issues may include, but are not limited to, the availability of the internet, device failure or malfunction, unavailability of social media platforms, or power outages. It should be noted that no protection is afforded to council members, employees, or the public for comments made during meetings which are subsequently challenged in a court of law and/or determined to be defamatory. Notice is hereby provided that under the authority of the Municipal Act 2001 and according to the Municipal Freedom of Information and Privacy Act, that all information provided for at a public meeting or other public process are considered public record. Members of council, staff, delegates, and attendees should be mindful of using names of individuals or entities when discussing matters in public. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and/or unacceptable behavior or comments. Approval of the agenda.
Moved by Councillor Hudel, second by Councillor Hermer. Be it resolved that council approves the agenda for the special meeting regarding the strategic plan dated September 26, 2023 as circulated.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none. Item 4, strategic planning session. The agenda, Tara, please.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, second by Councillor Hudel. Be it resolved that council receives for information the presentation from Steve Licky and Suzanne. I have Tim, sorry, and Suzanne, Capital Park Consulting Incorporated, and completed council strategic planning session.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. So now we've entered the public forum portion. So we turn it over to Steve and Suzanne.
Thank you very much. You know, Suzanne and I are both very, very pleased to be here. Suzanne's very pleased to be here because she gets to see the colors pretty close to full color. And I'm very pleased to be in a place where people know how to pronounce my name.
Don't be so sure about that. There are many variations.
We've got a full day planned for you today. I've got the agenda up now for the morning session. I'll let you read it because you can probably read it faster than I can. I should let you know that we don't always stick exactly with the times that we have, but the important thing is we end up finishing on time, which usually is the most important. And there's the afternoon. You can see that we like to break things up. We like to keep things moving. We find it's easier for people to stay alert, pay attention. I read someplace that the average person has an attention span that's a maximum of 45 minutes. So we rarely go even up to the 45 minutes because we don't want to push our luck. Just a few classroom rules. Everyone in the room has equal standing. All ideas are valid. And we're hoping to get input from everybody in the room. So sometimes if you're a person who's a little bit shy, if you want to, you know, sort of force yourself to be a little bit more assertive. And if you're someone who likes to talk, just maybe rein it back in a little bit. Although I'm sure there's nobody in the room like that. And unless you are a firefighter, we ask that you put away your phone. You can check it during the breaks, but we want your full attention during the sessions. Occasionally, we're aiming for a consensus. Occasionally, something comes up that we don't agree on. We usually start a parking lot. We put those things in there and they're usually resolved by the end of the day. So introductions. We usually go around the room and we ask people to tell us who you are, what your position is, how long you've been involved with the township, your greatest hope and your worst fear related to today's session. And then to end with an adjective describing how you feel about today's session using either your initial from your first name or the initial from your last name. So I'll go first. And my name is Steve Lichty. I'm a consultant with Capital Park Consulting. I really don't have any connection with North Frontenac. I have a son who lives in South Frontenac, a relatively recent immigrant there. But this is my first visit to North Frontenac, and I'm pretty sure it won't be my last. My greatest hope is that we're going to have a consensus on all the major issues today and really come out of it where everyone says three things. You learned a lot, you had a good time, and you felt it was very productive. My worst fear is at the end of the day, you go home and say, well, the highlight was the lunch. And not that I'm hoping for a bad lunch, but. And an adjective that describes how I feel about today's session, I'm going to go with the S. I feel sensational. It's going to be a great day. So now it's your turn, and I'll start with Kelly.
Kept looking this way. I'm like, please, no, don't start with me. Okay, so I'm Kelly Watkins. I'm the treasurer for North Frontenac. I have been working for North Frontenac for just over 17 years. My greatest hope in the strategic plan is to really give us some great guidance so that we can work through budget and get through our projects and make the community better. The worst fear, I guess, is that we don't come up with a consensus and we struggle with our goals. An adjective describing how you feel about today's session. I have K and W. I'm struggling with the keen. I'm keen to see how it all plays out.
Hi, I'm Brooke Ross. I'm Manager of Community Development. I've been with the township for 7 years in this role for just about 2 or year or 2 years. Anyways, approximately. Your greatest hope is, I'll kind of agree with Kelly that we come up with some great goals and something that staff can work with and progress our community. My biggest fear is, I'm just going to take Kelly's again because I don't know. It's putting me on the spot. Fear is that, you know, it might be something confusing for staff to work with, or we don't have good goals. And an objective, we'll go with B, and we'll go with bravery for everybody to say what they really feel.
Darwin Sproul, I'm manager of public works, so I manage the roads and the waste sites. I've been with the township 6 years. I was with Ministry of Transportation 35 years, really focused on construction and roads and bridges. My hope for the day is that we come up with a great plan that recognizes how unique our township is and that it moves us forward. My greatest fear is that we fail to recognize that roads are our top priority. Yes. And an adjective, I don't know. I guess I tend to be pretty deliberate. I don't know.
Good morning, everybody. Eric Kerhonen, Director of Emergency Services, Fire Chief. I've been with the township since 2008 and in the capacity of chief since 2015. I hope from today we, on the positive aspect, come away with many takeaways, and the negative would be to come away with no takeaways. My keywords would be an exceptional opportunity.
I've been with the, I'm Wayne Good, counselor, but if everybody's not aware, but I've been with the township as a counselor for 18 years. I hope this strategic plan works out for us the way the way I'm looking at it. It should be. We done the strategic plan the last time I think it was done was at a resort not too far from here. And the first one we done, and I was there for that one. It was a long day, but it worked out. Like I said, the objectives is to make sure that the township is run right. I've always been an advocate of that, and I have no fears as far as what today's going to bring. I take it day by day. That's the way I work it.
I've been a counselor, I guess it's almost a year now. My mom's family's been in North Frontenac since 1960. I don't really have any fears about today because I think that there's some very smart people sitting here on both sides from the township and the staff and the counselors. I think we all kind of have the township's best interests at heart. So I don't really have any fears about this not going well. I do hope, though, that we make some decisions that are not just good for the constituents, but the staff here. I think the staff they are a huge part of what goes on in this township. So, but the decisions that we make have to be achievable. Things need to be able to be measured. I do not believe in writing decisions about things that are based on feeling and don't go anywhere. I think we've had some of that before. And this is a whole new opportunity to start a little bit over, sort of.
Corey Cloud, I've been here for 16 years. Wayne was one of the ones that hired me, so if you're upset about that, blame him. Yeah, okay. I'm really excited about today, actually. I've been wanting to see this type of project completed for a long time, where we actually had some consultants come in with the public consultation, the whole thing. So I'm looking forward to an awesome day today with some great feedback. I don't have any, I'm very similar to Wayne. I don't have any fears. If nothing else, we all get to sit here and listen to what each other feels and work at coming to a consensus as to what our priorities are. So this is, I just don't have any. So, well, initial, see, I'm kind of feeling kind of cool today.
I'm Tara Miskey, and I'm the clerk and planning manager for the township. I've been with the township for about 15 years and the clerk for 7. My hope for today is that we can maybe do some thinking outside the box and come up with some good goals and priorities. We have an amazing township, and I'm hoping today will reflect that. My fear is that we don't come up with any goals or a consensus on the goals. And my adjective, I'm going to go with totally amazing.
Good morning. I'm Jerry Lichty. I'm the mayor. I've been working with the township for the last about 4 years. I spent about 3 of it on committee of planning and adjustment, which was quite an experience and sort of led to this position. My issues for today, what I'm hoping for, are something to provide an overall framework for where we're going and how we work within it. We're doing okay, I think, but we're doing A, B, C, D, but we're not necessarily working towards a goal. We may be, but not without thinking about the larger picture. I think also it's a team building exercise, especially for council and the senior staff, to get to know each other. It's one of my issues. Council's heard me before say, we don't get a chance just to discuss things among ourselves. And it gives us a great opportunity to exchange views and see where it all takes us. My greatest fear, I don't really have one, because I think if, other than maybe we waste a day, but I think that we're working in a general consensus anyway, or toward the general consensus. So even if we don't come up with something that's really top notch and whatever, we will have moved the needle somewhat. And Darwin has a friend with the roads, so we're good to go. And so let's just hope for a great day.
Good morning, Roy Hudel, Councillor of Ward 2 for the last year. I'm a full-time resident of North Frontenac for 3 years, but bought property up here about 20 years ago, and I knew I wanted to retire up here, so that's what I did. I think this is a great opportunity, and I'm looking forward to not only
developing a vision for the next 4 years, but really we should be looking at developing a vision for the next 15, 20, 25 years. So that's, maybe that leads to my fear that we don't do that. We don't see far out to the future, which we should be doing today or over the next period of time. As far as my initials go, I'm going to use F because that's my middle initial. And don't worry, I won't say anything too vulgar, but fantastic opportunity.
Vernon Hummer, Councillor Ward 2. I've been involved with as a councillor for the past, well, not the past 15 years, but 15 years overall. I think this is going to be a great opportunity to maybe think out of the box and come up with new initiatives. I guess my biggest fear is that at 78 years old, I might live too long.
Good morning. My name is Fred Fowler. I'm a retired Toronto police officer, and I've been living in, I have had property here since 1999. And I moved up here permanently in 2004. And the people in the city said, how could you get used to that place? And I said, it took me 5 minutes just to get out of the car and stretch. Anyway, my hope for the future is that we learn how to build our township. We have to attract more development, and that's just not just residents, but businesses. And the more stuff that we bring into the township, the more chances we're going to get other things like doctors and better businesses. My biggest fear is that we stayed at the way we are and do not move forward. So forward in the future. I used to it, my initials. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Suzanne Harrison. I'm helping Steve here with the facilitation. I'm happy to be back in this lovely area. I've biked all these roads, so I do agree with the road maintenance and the KNP trail and everything you have to offer here. Really, our greatest hope is that you move the yardstick forward and you come with a plan, and this session is useful. My greatest fear is I was going to be late here. And an adjective, more of a word that I'm going to use, is for people to be honest. And to people really speak their minds and don't hold back, because that's how it's going to be really productive, especially when we start working in the sessions.
Thank you. Some very good input. Vernon, I was reading the other day a quotation. I forget the gentleman who made the quotation, but he said, I plan to live the rest of my life in the future. So that's why I'm going to plan today. And Roy, you talked about longer than a 4 or 5 year planning period. We're finding a lot of our municipal clients are no longer naming their strategic plans like with 2023 to 2027 or 28. They're tending to say 2023 to 2028 and beyond, because some of the things that you plan to do or would like to do or should do, you can't do in 4 or 5 years. Like, for example, if you do decide roads are important, you may find you're going to need a 10, 12 year planning period to get the roads into the condition that you want. They're not short-term goals. The overview of the project, in many ways, strategic planning is really simple. Just ask yourself 3 questions. Where are we today? Where do we want to be? And how are we going to get there? And you can see all the different ways you have to do that, where you get input from counselors, you have a SWOT analysis, you get feedback from the stakeholders. So if you're just going to gather up all that information, it's really, really easy. Are any of you familiar with Dr. Roger Martin? He's best known as the director of the Prosperity Institute at the University of Toronto. Before that, he was the dean of the Rotman School of Business at the University of Toronto. A few years ago, he was recognized as the #1 management thinker in the world. For others, we think of him as someone we went to school with from Wallenstein, who went to Elmira High School. He said, he's written several books. And one of his quotations is, making strategy choices is never easy because it means doing some things at the expense of others. In the course of our work, Suzanne and I read a lot of strategic plans. And the worst ones that we read, where they've sort of gone around the room like this, and they've written down everything everybody asks for, and they have this long laundry list of all the things that are going to do, and the staff walk away and said, we can't possibly do all this. So you have to be able to select the things that are the highest priority and to do them. And sometimes it's not the most popular things. Everyone here remembers Hurricane Katrina? The incredible damage? What you may not be aware is that for over 20 years, the federal government, the state government, and the city of New Orleans had in their budget to upgrade their dike system. They knew that their dikes could not withstand a 100-year storm. But you only get a 100-year storm roughly every 100 years. So if you're on council for 4 years, what's the chances that it's going to happen in your tenure? So it kept getting put off and put off, put off. And no one complained that it was being put off. They complained afterwards. So sometimes, as the leaders of the community, you have to choose to do things that may not necessarily be the most popular, but the ones that you know as the leaders are the most important. They need to get done. So as part of the research, we've had virtual meetings with all of the staff in the municipal office, all the management staff. We've reviewed the documents that you have on your website and some others that were sent to us. We've looked at material from other sources like the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the Canadian Federation of Municipalities. Sometimes there's some interesting documents that come out of the federal and provincial governments, particularly the provincial governments. And we've also reviewed specifically about 30 to 40 strategic plans of municipalities that are similar to North Frontenac to pick out ones that we think you could learn something from. Now, this was in the material that, one of these was in the material that we sent to you. This is the age chart by, or your population chart by age. You notice that they all seem to have a bit of a thyroid condition when they get up around the 55 to 65 age group. Can you pick out which one is North Frontenac? I'll give you a hint. It's the top right. Central Frontenac is the top left. French River is the bottom left. And the bottom right is Billings Township, which is in Manitoulin Island. So why do they all have this same population graph? The four townships are very similar. You have a relatively small permanent population, fairly high proportion of seasonal residents. But why so many seniors, or almost seniors? I don't know the answer for sure, but we speculate that it has something to do with COVID, that a lot of people, perhaps people who had a seasonal residence here or purchased a seasonal residence during COVID to get out of the big city. But it's quite interesting that all four townships with very similar geography, very similar demographics, have an issue with a very large cohort of people that are, if they're not seniors yet, they're going to be seniors fairly soon. And even though seniors accommodation is generally considered to be an upper tier level responsibility, it's still going to be a concern for your residents. And as a lower tier municipality, it's something you have to take into account. The other thing, which should be a little bit worrisome, is how few young adults you have. If you look at the lowest part, this tends to be the age where there would be young families, people in their 20s. Now, it's common in a small municipality that as people finish high school, they go off to college, university, they leave the area, and they may not be, many of them don't come back. When they're going to college, university, they get a co-op job, which turns into a permanent job, and they stay there. They meet a significant other and they move away, or they find they've graduated, but there's no job that for their skill set where they're from, or they're starting a family and there's no childcare. There's lots of reasons why people don't come back, but it's a bit worrisome when you've lost a key cohort of the 20s and early 30s. Now, some of them do come back when they're later on in life, when they're older and wiser. But when you look at it, you've got two areas to address: lack of young families, and a lot of people are getting a little bit gray. In January 2020, there was, I believe it was a county study that was done that projected the population growth for North Frontenac. And by 2046, you were supposed to have 2,100 permanent residents. Well, when the census was done federally in June of 2021, so only 18 months later, You were well past that. You were at 2285. A lot of that was COVID. Is that sustainable? Those people are going to stay? What we're finding is, and by the way, this chart here, it's the same in the other three townships that I talked about a minute ago. So there's some, it has jumped everywhere. But what's also interesting is some of the municipalities that are closer to the large urban centers, their age cohort graph that I showed you a few minutes ago, it doesn't look like yours. It's the more common one, where it's like sort of like a Christmas tree, where it gets narrower towards the top fairly consistently. But they also saw a big jump in their populations over COVID. And they appear to be keeping those residents. The people who have moved to the smaller communities find that the quality of life is so much better that they want to stay. So we're not experts in this, but our suspicion is that you're going to find your population is going to continue to grow faster than had been expected. Looking at some of the federal findings, you probably noticed that we have a large federal deficit, and their last budget had no plans to bring it into balance. Inflation is high, making a bit of progress, but it looks like we had a bit of a relapse the last month. There's no indication that interest rates are going to come down in the near future. I've got a quotation from the parliamentary budget officer who said that we held at 4.5% until sometime in 2024. And a few weeks after he predicted that, the Bank of Canada fooled him by raising the rate to 5%. So what's that impact going to be with high interest rates for infrastructure? Any long-term debt that you have? In Ontario, in theory, we're running a small deficit, although there are a lot of experts who think that we're already in surplus. But if you look on the right side of the screen, this is from the AMO. They don't think that the last budget was a particularly good news budget for municipalities, that they don't see any additional funds coming to the municipalities. You're suffering from inflation just like everybody else is, so your costs are going to be going up. But don't expect any handouts. The one possible exception is going to be housing. Housing is, if not the number one issue, pretty close to the number one issue, federally, provincially, and municipally. Several of you mentioned development, the need for growth. What's not on this, was not in the report and isn't on any of these slides, the number of houses that we are building in Canada are fewer than the number of houses we need to accommodate the immigrants every year. And that's not to discourage immigration. It's simply to say that we've got a problem now with a housing shortage. It's going to get worse before it gets better, unless we make some very, very significant changes. So anything in there that surprised you? Anything that you thought would be there that's not there?
I don't necessarily think that COVID has anything to do with how many seniors are living here. I think that this has typically been, our population has typically been geared towards that age for a very long time. There are not a lot of young people here. They don't come here and stay here. There's not enough interest in the township for jobs and childcare, and there's no affordable housing. So if you're 25 with a small family and you want to open a small business here, you're on your own. So it's like a vicious circle. So we want people here to increase our tax base, but there's no incentive. There's certainly no monetary incentive. You basically got to figure it out. So we're never going to get to that unless we figure out a whole bunch of other things. And the province not giving us money to build affordable housing is a huge problem, because it's not like we can just do that without their assistance.
Can I just ask about that? When you say affordable, sometimes people think that is subsidized housing. Other times people think it's just a range of options from the less expensive to the more expensive.
Well, I don't think we need anything more expensive than what we already have. There's no, like, rentals, for example. There's little to no rentals. If there are, it's hard to even find them. It's not like we have a list of affordable rentals here. We don't. There's rentals, but you know, if you want to pay $800 or $900 a month for a small one bedroom, like we don't have that. You know, if I won the lottery tomorrow, the first thing I would do is I would build, that's what I would do with it. And you'd have apartments for families that they can actually afford. So maybe they could come here and get a job, because we're always looking for staff out here. Do you see what I mean about the vicious circle? So it's all this stuff is connected together. But you're not gonna come out here unless you have a job. And if you can't afford to open a business, then what do you do? And even if you can, it's a struggle.
Thank you.
One of the things I've noticed is, because I lived in Toronto and been around that area for a long time, anybody that had bought property, 30, 40 years ago in Toronto, kept that property and sold it right now, they'd be a millionaire. Hands down. Can they afford to live in Toronto? Maybe if they retire, they might have enough money to stay in their home. But the best option for them is that they sell their home, come to a place like this. They could build a brand new home for half of what their property, what they would get for their property, and still have half of the money left over to live on. And there are a lot of people that have that idea. The thing is that the township here, any of these townships that have our kind of demographic, ought to be looking to the future to build and accommodate these people, to attract them, because that's your tax base and there's a lot of money there. Yes, it would be great to have young people come, and it might happen if you get some construction and things like that happening. That might build a business in the area that would accommodate younger people. And if, I've always said and thought that if we try to attract people from those larger centers that are in that position to come here and try to settle here, make it good for them, be welcoming to them. I'm from that area. I had a little bit of money when I came here, but this was a place I could afford and work. But I was lucky I had my own business after I retired, and I could build my business up and I could build my home. But, I think we should be looking into the future and looking for those people.
So in my opinion, both Stephanie and Fred are correct, but I think there's more to it. People come here because they want a different way of life. They want to relax. There's good camaraderie between the majority of citizens here. They make a physical decision that they're X amount of kilometers from grocery store, a fire department, ambulance, hospital care, shopping. You're doing this because you want a change in lifestyle. And we hear that when we're out talking to people and so on. I think we're like, if I've said it before, I'll say it again, we are probably the next Muskokas if we aren't already. The prices are rising here, making the situation that Stephanie talked about even more difficult. And the current provincial explanation of affordable housing is 80% of the value of the surrounding housing. So if you're sitting in a bunch of $1 million houses, affordable is considered 800,000. And we all know that many people can't afford the home that they're in. So if they had to buy it again. And so there it is.
Anybody else?
One problem we have when it comes to younger people, there's no possible way that we can get an industrial base that provides suitable employment. We're too far off the beaten track. The main corridor, the 401 corridor, nobody wants to travel this far back. And the expense of, if we did have something, there's the expense of getting that product to market.
One of the other issues, just talking about what you're talking about, is North Frontenac's large geographic area. But it tends to be a line that goes from Cloyne and Harlow across through Plevna, Ampa, Snow Road. There isn't a tremendous amount of population this way. It's this way. And you can take a line somewhere just west of here And there's like two different townships. Because this is a larger population base, this is a little more remote, a little more rural, slightly different attitude. So when we start talking about social housing or affordable housing and so on, it'd be nice to build some here, but many of the physical requirements or availability and so on assets exist on the other side. So that's another problem we have right across the board.
Interesting times. I think that's a Chinese curse. I asked you if you knew about Dr. Richard or Dr. Roger Martin. How many of you are familiar with Dr. Richard Florida? He's an American economist who spent most of his career also at the University of Toronto. He's written a half a dozen bestsellers on what creates economic prosperity in a community. On the right side of the screen is the traditional approach that people move, people follow the jobs. You know, wherever the work is, people move there. Some of you look like you might remember the early 1980s when interest rates went up to, I believe, 22%. That was when Dr. Florida had just graduated with a PhD in economics. He was in his hometown of Pittsburgh. He had to go to Boston. And while he was in Boston, he was reading the local paper and discovered that one of the major early IT companies was moving from Pittsburgh to Boston. And he's reading this and saying, well, why would they possibly do that? There's 30% unemployment in Pittsburgh. You know, you've got very good universities there. You've got highly skilled graduates coming out. Why would they be picking up and leaving Pittsburgh and coming to Boston? And as he read the article and they read the interview with the owners of the company, they said, we're moving to Boston because of the amenities, the quality of life, the things that you can do here. And he thought, well, that's crazy. No, I spent all these years in university studying economics, and we were told that the people will go where the jobs are. This is turning us on its head, that the jobs go where the people are. You know, he spent about 35 years researching that, writing that, expounding that. The quotation on the left, he actually wrote in 2017, so he was 35 years into it, where he changed his tune a little bit. He said, as highly skilled and talented people, the knowledge and professional workers, they can pick where they want to go. And I'll give you an example. I work for a consulting firm that's based in Ottawa. Our president, Tim, is in Ottawa. Suzanne's in Ottawa. I actually live close to Sarnia. I live in a little village of 800 people. It doesn't matter where I live. I can live anywhere that I want, get the quality of life that I want. And by the way, every time I drive through Toronto, I'm reminded why I don't live in Toronto. The neighbor, well, he's in the backyard, our properties adjoin. He is a piper, a welder pipe fitter. He was working at a battery plant in Windsor, which you may have read about. And a few months ago, when the federal government decided to give $13 billion to Volkswagen in St. Thomas, Stellantis in Windsor said, wait a minute, we didn't get $13 billion. And they stopped work on the plant, which meant that he was out of work. No one was coming to his house to offer him a job. The closest job he could get was in Kitimat, BC. Because when you're a welder pipe fitter, you have to go where the jobs are. So it depends on what it is that you do as to how much flexibility that you have. But realistically, you're probably not going to attract a battery plant to North Frontenac. You don't have the services. You're too far off the beaten path from the major markets. But what you can attract are the people who are going to start the micro industries. You know, the microbreweries, the specialty cheese shops, the special, crafts, that type of thing, which also blends in well if you're trying to attract tourists. But something to think about, because you talked about having jobs for people here, younger people, but people of any age. What will make it easier for them to come here and start a business?
So speaking for part of my ward in Cloyne, I can tell you right now, there's not a lot of people in that area, in part of that ward, not all of it, that do not have a large amount of disposable income. They work, they pay their bills. They're not going to a specialty cheese shop or anything of that sort. To Vernon's point, as a matter of fact, it would make sense to have something up here that, like a factory of some sort, where people could get a regular job, meaning regular hours, where they didn't have to worry about how they were gonna feed their kids. The amount of people living in Cloyne that actually leave Cloyne to go to work is shocking. They go to Napanee, Belleville. I know, because they come in my store. That is, again, not reflective of the entire ward. We have two very different groups of people in our ward. But the ones who are getting up at the crack of dawn to leave town for work would probably do the same thing here if they had the opportunity. We need employment here so people are not living paycheck to paycheck.
Another challenge. Well, maybe the next thing to do is to move on for a SWOT analysis. Has everyone here done a SWOT analysis before? I'll let Suzanne lead this.
All right. Well, you've already sort of started the SWOT analysis. So it's really trying to assess and doing a roundtable and getting people's ideas. And the idea behind the SWOT analysis is to identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And it kind of gets the ideas generated, and it sets kind of the groundwork for moving on to the next stage when you start of looking, okay, where do we want to go? What are going to be the main opportunities? What are we going to be the main, where are we going to concentrate ourselves? Now, we're going to break you out in groups, and it's really to spend time in identifying in your county is going, what are my strengths? What are weaknesses? What are opportunities and threats? And I wouldn't worry exactly about where you're putting your ideas in, because sometimes your strengths can also be a weakness and your threats can also be an opportunity. So you can kind of flip those around about how people look at it. All right. And we're going to split you up into 3 groups. And do they take a flip chart and markers? Okay. Okay. So we'll walk around and give you some prodding if you need it. Oh, we're good. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you. We're back. So what we're going to do in terms of doing the plenary session is we're going to have each group present one. So, strengths, weakness, opportunities. And for fun, we're going to start with group 2. And what we would like you to present is what you identified as the strengths. So if there's a person who would like to be the spokesperson of that group.
Okay, so for strengths, we had environment, clean water and air. Do you want me to go slow so we can write it?
Just explain.
Okay, yeah, so environment, clean water, air, our quality of life. We also had in here our road conditions and our emergency services.
Now you can start.
Okay.
Emergency roads, emergency services is just, it's accessible, like they're in terms of the speed or the accessibility, or that they're local.
Yeah, I think we kind of meant that, so like our local fire department and how close and how good our emergency services are, our response times, and am I on the right track, Wayne? Yeah, okay.
Because that's not the experience of every small
For
municipality.
sure.
Okay.
We did say roads, yes.
Your roads are amazing compared to downtown Ottawa.
Counselor Good. Wayne.
Same as our emergency services, we have a great group of guys, and our chiefs, two chiefs, they run the emergency services very well, and it's looked after.
So Eric can expect a raise? Eric can expect a raise?
Well, expectations are always nice to have.
Okay, anything else in terms of, no? Okay, group one, do you want to add to that? That you identified as strengths?
So some of these might be the same. The recreational opportunities here, as a matter of fact, probably more than even we're aware of. I think we could do a little bit better job of getting that information out there. Scenery seems like such a, that's not the right word, but like just take a drive down 506. Yes, that's,
Yeah.
that is, it literally, to Fred's point earlier today, need to spend 5 minutes. Honestly, most people would spend 5 minutes here and think, why do I not live here? That's how I feel it. We touched on the staff here. I think that the staff at the office, the feedback that we receive is that the staff here are very professional, knowledgeable. You can speak to them. That is not the case in all municipalities, and certainly not in large cities.
I agree with that.
I mean, the constituents know who their counselor is. They know who's at the office.
Mhm.
I spend a lot of time redirecting people to someone specific here, and I always get feedback from them that they actually got an answer.
Mm.
And I think we have a more forward-thinking council at the moment.
Excellent. Anything else?
No,
Mm,
not that we wrote down.
okay, well, that's good enough. Group one? Oh, group one, group three, sorry.
Want me to- All right, so we said a strong, self-sufficient, resilient community. We talked a little bit about growth.
In terms of growth, are you seeing projected growth as a strength?
We actually put growth in all four categories, to
Yeah.
be honest with you. So
Yeah.
we found, we are seeing some growth at which we've seen. So in a way that, the positive aspect of that will be, hopefully help it with a higher tax base with, the encouragement of more activities or more things to do in the community. So that's part of that that's the strength in that part. We said community groups and their volunteerism is phenomenal here. Total strength. So then we talked about accommodations. So that again fits in all four. So
Yeah.
10 years ago, the big thing was we couldn't even have a wedding in North Frontenac because there's no place to stay. Now there's Airbnbs and there's everywhere, a ton of them around. So it's just, is that a strength? Is it a threat? It's a little bit of each, right?
little bit
So
of
it's
each, yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
talked about our geographical location as a strength. So for some, there's a lot of people that come here because of the geographical
Mhm.
location. They want to get out of the city. They want to get to do things like that. We talked about, we have a progressive council and great working conditions here at the office, which will help us in the long term with recruitment.
Mhm.
And then we also talked about the artisan shops, kind of new and different businesses coming here. Again, 20 years ago, there would not have been an artisan shop in town. Do you remember one, Vernon, ever? I don't remember anything Back in that day, it was resorts and it was stores and it was, that's about it really. Tourism stuff. And then our pristine natural environment. So again, we're fortunate, 70% crown land.
You
here,
guys are
so-
70% crown land.
Yeah.
Wow.
So again, that's a strength that could fit in all four as
It can
well,
fit all
to be
four, yeah.
honest with you. But
Yeah,
we looked at the positive aspect of it for this exercise.
yeah, okay.
Other communities sometimes say they lost their volunteer base over COVID and can't get them back. You haven't had that same problem here?
Go ahead, Corey.
Absolutely, but at the same time, a good example is we haven't had a committee at one of our community halls for years, and now we have a committee that kind of is there. So what we've seen is some of the seniors on those committees that don't want to come back, but a lot of that's now being taken over by a younger group of our individuals from our community. So in a way, it's bouncing back for us for sure.
Actually, I was going to say the exact same thing Corey just said. There's also, I've noticed there's also a little bit more of, people not relying on committees per se for an idea. So you just have to make sure you got your ducks in a row and then you can do it. So, like, for example, the hall across from the Berry Hall in Coyne, right? That was a growing concern before COVID. COVID really kicked that building in the butt, for lack of a better term, and that a lot of those people that were doing stuff in there have not come back. But to Corey's point, we have a Coyne Rec Club now. So.
So Snow Road is essentially the same. At one point in time, this was the poster child for senior involvement. 50, 60 people out of a very small section of the community. It was active every day. There was events, people played cards, played bridge, they had community dinners and on and on and on and on. And then COVID hit. And what happened during COVID is a lot of the people that were running the halls, they weren't just running it for a couple of years, they were now running it for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and they got tired. And the membership just dried up, the events dried up, they just couldn't have them. And now we're starting to see people come back. And yes, there are different people coming back. Some of the regulars, some of the older ones, but it's okay. We're getting there. But there's 5 of them and they're the center of the communities.
Excellent. Okay, anything else? Because then we're going to do the weaknesses. And as you say, we're going to tie some of the strengths are going to end up being, a weakness and then we'll talk about the threats and opportunities. But in terms of the weaknesses, let's try group number 1.
So the first thing, of course, is the terrible cell service around here. And I kind of cringe every time this topic comes up because I don't think we actually can do something about this problem at the municipal level. But I do think we need to figure out who can get something moving on our behalf, because we can't keep saying cell service is a problem, is a problem, is a problem. Like I do, this whole discussion about cell service just infuriating, right?
It seems very targeted to different communities of it, but everywhere in Ontario where you have these like pockets.
Well, it
of
is
nothing.
terrible up here.
Yeah.
It is. And I think unfortunately we get forgotten a lot up here.
Right.
So it's not that someone's not working on it,
Mhm.
but it's like, they can wait. Like
Right.
that's the impression that you get, right? But that is a huge problem, because if you can't work from home,
Yeah.
you can't get decent Wi-Fi at your business.
Yeah.
That's some depressing news. When I was looking for strategic plans, I came across the one for the people who are responsible for providing connectivity to rural Canada. And I thought this would be really interesting to share with everybody. There's nothing in their strategic plan about what they're going to do. It's about what they've done.
Yeah. So it's, I think we need to be a bit more assertive about that problem.
Mhm.
And of course, one of my favorite topics, which we discussed as a group, was the lack of affordable housing and appropriate affordable rentals.
Mhm. And because you said you have jobs here, right? Or was that part of the discussion that you had?
That's a whole other discussion.
Okay.
We'd have to start a new page, honestly.
Well, yeah,
And
but
you'd never get me to stop talking. And then the major access roads. Yeah, I know. I was told I was quiet in the beginning when I first got on council. and Now Jerry's probably wondering why. Anyways, major access roads, can you expand on that?
So the township has, like I was talking earlier, is kind of divided east and west. And a lot of the roads, not everything, but the condition of the roads on the west side is definitely pretty good. But the condition of the roads on the east side is essentially from Ampa to Snow Road in that area is not good. And that's the road that the people from Ottawa travel, all their seasonal people. And a couple of those roads are really bad. And one of them, I don't know, Darrell and I were talking maybe $1 million or $2 million, we'll see. The other one could be easily 5 or 10 or 20 million. It may never get done.
Right.
It's just that you want to encourage people to come. And roads they're okay, but they're not, they need a lot of work. So it's an issue that we're gonna have to deal with. And then while we're doing that, then we have to maintain everything else we've got.
And the road condition, it affects the fire service, it affects the ambulances, like it affects everything, right?
Oh, absolutely.
That's why
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I think it's probably the top priority of this whole township is the road conditions. Why would you live here in the winter if the roads were terrible?
Mhm.
Or you couldn't get it plowed out because it wasn't assumed by the township. See how like intertwined everything is here? And then the last thing on our list was the lack of which the economic development subcommittee group off of that group that consists of Councillor Hudel and I and Dr. Ward. We've started a bit of a process working with, possibly working with the clinic to just assist them. Our family health team in Northbrook's been looking for a doctor for 8 years.
Right.
Right? Anyways, there are some
Mhm.
very invested people now who want to see that change.
Mhm.
So that's the other problem because there are many people here who say, I cannot stay out here in the middle of nowhere, which it is. If I can't if I don't have a doctor to go see, I need to be closer to healthcare.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so then we end up losing people.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, which we don't want. We need to bring people here.
Yeah.
And we have a small population and a small tax base. So when it comes time to pay for something, we have limited resources.
Mhm.
Make a comment about the medical issue you raised. Yesterday, I attended the Land O'Lakes Community Services AGM. And there was 4 individuals there that were primarily responsible for creating the Pine Grove Long-Term Care Facility. And they talked about back in the early 80s, the difficulty of getting medical help. And how what they did achieve is now beginning to age and it's very difficult that people get north of 7 and actually it's probably closer to become north of 401.
Mhm.
So it's kind of round in a circle, a little different scenario, but they've seen this before.
Right. Okay.
Is it just physicians or is it all healthcare practitioners?
All healthcare, we have to travel fair distances. Those on the east side have Perth and have Sharba Lake,
Mhm.
but you get to Cloyne and whatever, they lose their doctor. It's a long way to the next one.
If we need to also find nurse practitioners because we could have a nurse practitioner roster patients, which would take the load off the doctors we have. And then maybe they would have more energy to do other things that we need to do. But even finding a nurse practitioner is tricky because competition is fierce and they get paid very well.
Mhm.
So why would you come here when you could make the same money in the city
Mhm.
and be closer to other amenities?
Richard? Yeah, go ahead.
We leave that because this is important. The question is, why would they come here? So we offer like a signing bonus of about $100,000 if you stay for a couple of years or something. But it's not so much the professional, it's the professional spouse or significant other. what are they going to do? And we don't have a sufficient employment base in most cases. They may be highly skilled as well, and they have no place to work.
Yeah.
So now they're looking at it as a package.
Mhm.
So you come out with a $200,000 debt. Yes, we're giving you $100,000. I still owe 100. Okay, I can handle that. But what does my wife do or what does my husband do?
Yeah.
So then the spouse, well, maybe I'll start a small business. With what?
Right. And as you said, and I'm not sure if this is opportunity, weakness, whatever, it's the support for small businesses that come in and try to plant roots here.
This township does a tremendous job on that, I have
Okay.
to say, compared to others.
Okay.
But it's still, we still need to fine tune that because to Jerry's point, cannot believe we forgot that. It's not so much the nurse practitioner or the doctor. It's what will the spouse do?
Yeah.
Because if the spouse isn't happy, trust me, the nurse practitioner is not sticking around here. We've had that problem happen already.
Mhm. Okay. Good. Anybody other groups that want to add to the weaknesses? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we talked briefly about resources. So the resources that we do have locally,
Mhm.
we don't, there's no value added in the township from those. If it's logging, a lot of logging going on. The companies doing it tend to be, they're not all from outside the township, but tend to be from outside the township. And they're loaded up, they're trucked and they go to mills elsewhere. So there's like, it's a resource that's local, but we really get little advantage of it other
Right.
than a lot of wear and tear on our roads.
Right. What about employment of those businesses? Do they draw from this area?
I can't say none of them do, and
Okay.
somebody here probably knows more, better than I do. Some, but not to the
Right.
extent that, that it supports a local mill or anything.
Mhm.
And I know, and we have one mine that I'm aware of, the trucking and haulage and everything for that is done, from outside the area.
Right.
It isn't local construction companies that are doing that work.
Mhm.
Sorry. We're too far from the corridor. 401.
Mhm.
It would help out if Highway 7 was 4 lanes, the length of it, but it's only in sections that's done so far.
Right.
It's just not enough.
Yeah, go ahead, Brooke.
I think the last thing missing from our list was our attraction of young people and young families
Mhm.
and lack of amenities. I'm not sure it's kind of
Right. Do people come back? When young people leave, do they come back?
I
Yeah,
did,
yeah.
Wayne did.
Yeah.
They do, but it doesn't typically tend to be like I came back 3 years ago at 48, 47 years old.
Right. They're not coming back when they're 28. No. Okay.
No, but there's reasons for that, which are
Mhm.
fixable.
Mhm.
But if you want to go out for dinner,
Mhm.
so I'm the most eastern, Fred, or in the most eastern part of the township. We're going at least 45 kilometers or maybe 22, say 45 for dinner.
That's
You
a,
have one glass of wine, you're coming home and you're fighting darkness, bad roads or questionable roads and you're fighting deer and everything else.
yeah.
You really think twice about it. If you want to go shopping, you're going to Ottawa or Kingston, an hour and a quarter each, not bad.
Mhm.
Until you decide to come home and after a long day, it's just long. So, but you physically make a decision to live in North Frontenac.
Right.
And we made that decision and it's been a good one, but
Mhm.
not everybody thinks that way.
Mhm. Do you have people who come in and come out, like who come and then leave? Is that-
So just based
Yeah.
on my own experience in Cloyne, I've never seen so many for sale signs ever. There's 3 on my road. I don't recall the last time I saw a for sale sign on Head Road. To be
Okay.
perfectly blunt, there's 3 now. One
Right.
is an exception because the resident passed away, but there's so much for sale. I think there was a bit of a COVID hit. Oh my God, I have to get out of the city. I'm gonna go to North Frontenac, whatever. And now it's the interest rates. I can't afford it. I have to choose between my home and my cottage, and the home wins, right? So
Right.
now there's a ton of stuff for sale. So
Mhm.
to your point, yes, people are in and out. It's actually concerning
Right.
how much is for sale.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I look at a lot of my friends, they retired here when they were 60, 55 and they hit 70, 75 and they leave because of healthcare. They need that doctor every week or every 2
Mhm.
weeks, and it's too much of a travel burden to go to Kingston, go to Ottawa. So that's why
Yeah.
they're leaving.
So people can't age here or, you know, if they need anything, is it a place where people can come when they're 60, 65 and say, okay, this is where I'm going to live out my life? Like I will be able to retire. I will have a retirement home. They're,
It depends on I think it depends on your situation. I know my parents came here at 60, left when they were in their 70s. Now they're back, but that's because they have my assistance now.
right.
They couldn't manage a home with the snow and the wood and all the rest of it at that age by themselves.
Yeah.
I think it dramatically depends on your family situation,
Mhm.
how much help you have, where are they?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm at the age right now where, you know, I'm sort of thinking what's gonna happen in the next 4 to 8 years.
Right.
And I'm healthy enough right now to stay here, but I'm finding I'm having more difficult times doing the tasks that I've done when I first come here.
Right.
I've been here 24 years basically, and you know, it's you just start to get old. Things aren't working like they used to. And so, you know, like I'm sort of thinking, what am I gonna do, you know, 4 or 5 years from now?
Right.
You know, like my mortgage is up, I might be out of this job, which might be, you know, a little lack of money. And, you know, what am I gonna do?
Right.
So I'm sort of shopping around, seeing what's on the other side of different, you know, like a larger city.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, this topic that we're just touching on here,
Yeah.
I would bet is on everybody's dinner table at least once or twice a year. What are we going to do? How long can we stay here? What happens if?
Mhm.
We moved here when we retired. My wife's family farm is great. I think it's the best decision I ever made. I don't want to leave. Give me a crowbar before to get me out of here. It's not going to happen. My wife should go tomorrow, even though she's from here, because she's quite happy to play with an iPad and a TV and whatever, not me.
Right.
And that applies to a lot of people. So, and your asset is your property. You sell the property and then you take that, you move into some kind of care facility.
Mhm.
And the government of Ontario's age in place is a little bit to blame for this
Mhm.
because they want you to stay in your house and we all want to do that. But to move from here to a long-term care facility, you generally have to be really ill. The long-term care, the quality of life in the long-term care facilities, those people are really in bad shape.
Right.
And anything in between, you're paying for big bucks.
Right.
So, yeah, even if you move from here closer to medical care, you need something where there's some sort of support.
Well, it's that, you know, it goes with that whole lack of care, but it's the support, right? It's the support to be able, when you see the graphs of a lot of these small municipalities where you see really where the bump is saying, how do we allow people to stay and remain in the community? What services? Where do we get funds? What do we do?
Well, the services in Brooks Group touched on it is, it's not bad. I mean, for living here and the volunteerism and so on, I
Mhm.
need a ride here. My car broke down, they'll come and pick you up. No
Right.
problem.
Right.
And no questions asked. But as you get older,
Mhm.
there are realities, bigger properties take more work, you know. Golden age isn't always the golden age,
Mhm.
unless you're a pharmaceutical company.
So I'll just give you group three's input. I'll just try to touch on the ones that we haven't touched on yet. So we briefly talked about lack of shopping services, et cetera. Yes, it's like Jerry mentioned before, we have if you want to go out and eat, you're gonna you have one choice really, or you're gonna go from end to end.
Right.
But there's also really real lack of shopping. So there's a grocery store, but again, it's the selection stuff that you need that maybe you can't quite get here as easily. And we talked about the isolation and lack of activities in the winter time.
Mhm.
Wintertime, it's very quiet here, but it's people are hesitant to drive to town, drive to the city in the wintertime, or people are hesitant to come and visit in the
Mhm.
wintertime because of the potential of a snowstorm. Lack of revenue. So again, we talked about, Fred mentioned a small population, and that is an
Mhm.
issue for us. That we don't have a lot of revenue coming in for the township to run, other than taxes. So so we talked about lack of jobs, but we also hear a lot from the businesses that lack of employees. They can't find people to
They
work
can't
for
find
them.
people,
So
yeah.
that's a real weakness for us here as well. So it's kind of, it works both ways.
Mhm.
Um,
Can I just ask you, what kind of jobs are they looking for?
so if I were to go out and talk to 10 resort owners today,
Right.
probably 8 of them would say I had a hard time finding staff this
Okay,
year. If
right.
I go out and talk to carpenters, contractors, stuff
Right.
like that, they're saying I can't find people to work.
So it's
for me."
everything from kind of, support, not no skill to skilled labor.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we talked about connectivity as well. And we just talked about catering to seniors. So I think our biggest population, if I recall, was seniors.
Mhm.
And there's just not, we don't know that there's really truly enough services for the seniors in our
Right.
area. And again, that we don't do a lot of programming based things, the township, but there really isn't a
Right.
lot
Have
for
you had
seniors
that
to do.
feedback from the seniors here in terms of more support and more?
I think, did you mention when you were doing your canvassing, we'll let Roy contact?
Yeah, I think when we were all out canvassing at the last election, we heard that from the seniors
Right.
that, they want something more from and we've talked about it. It's just, what do we do?
And you have the transportation issue as well, right? You have to drive.
Just some more depressing news. Seniors now are what's referred to as the silent generation. They don't complain a lot. The bump in the population are the baby boomers. We are really good at complaining. So that will change over the next 10, 20 years. You'll have a much more militant group of older people.
And that would be appreciated. Really would be. There was a meeting in Charlotte Lake about a week or two ago about building a residential complex. They have this property downtown. And it was intended for seniors, but there was a younger generation there. And the younger people made the point that the baby boomers are going to come to an end. So we were talking about that in our little breakout session. And so if we started in 1946, you live 80 years. We're at the beginning of baby boom generation now. Baby boom ended early 60s. It's over in 2040. So while we're looking ahead, yes, whoops. So at some point, you're going to have to make this transition. And that's what happened with the schools years ago when they began closing them because they couldn't fill them. And now it's kind of gone the other way. So it's just the fact of being any government.
Mhm.
And it's a real challenge that makes it really exciting, but it's something we all need to be aware of.
Okay. Oh, yeah, Kelly?
But I just want to talk about the employment. I think some of the concern or the weaknesses is because it's very seasonal. So
Mhm.
we talked about, the cottage, owners and the construction, it's all very seasonal. So if somebody wants year-round work, that is not what's available. So then it's hard for them to find someone that's going to work
Mhm.
4 months, 6 months
Right.
through the summer and then be on unemployment for the rest of the year.
Oh, that's a good point. Great. Any other weaknesses? I was wondering next time when we do opportunities and threats, do you want to do it side by side? Okay, perfect. All right. So now looking at opportunities and threats, and I think those sometimes go together because there's going to be, same topic in both. So let's start with, we haven't started with group 3 in terms of opportunities.
So because we're a recreational community, there's a great opportunity to create tourism and enhance our tourism in the area. Lots of recreational activities.
Yeah.
Very much opportunity to enhance that. Again, we've got accommodation again in this one as well. We have a really good opportunity to build on ecotourism. To create a hamlet hub. We really don't have much for hubs, do we? Where everybody kind of wants to go or goes other than we have our community halls, but we don't have that.
Do people, and I apologize for my ignorance as I've biked a lot here. Is there like a central main street or somewhere where people go and walk, or is it this? Pardon me? Okay, okay. Right.
We've got increased health, opportunity for increased healthcare. Potential for municipal campground. Again, it's recreation. It's something that's there. Creating a community and connectivity opportunity as well. Connectivity. There is some stuff coming provincially here that they've committed to, so we'll see what happens, but that opportunity is looming apparently, so
Mhm.
we're hoping.
All right, and your top threats? You get to go twice.
Not ready for growth.
Mhm.
Again, we saw over COVID, we saw some growth, but we were not ready for that. We had boat launches that were packed and no parking. We had lots of stuff going on. Beaches packed. Remember, people were coming here from the city to use the beach because they weren't allowed to use the packed and not following rules. It
Right.
it was interesting. It was
And is
neat.
that growth in tourism, growth in, population, growth in, when you're talking growth?
All of it, all of it, yeah.
All of it.
NIMBYism. It's a
Right.
big threat always. Again, accommodation, there's a threat there, we have, again, NIMBYism there as well with an accommodation.
In terms of in terms of new accommodation, new construction,
New types.
new types?
New accommodation, types of accommodation. Again, we talked about
Higher density
Airbnbs and
accom-
short-term accommodation and we talked.
Right,
So again, there's strengths to that, but there's
Yeah.
also some threats to that too.
right.
Especially with the NIMBYism. Lack of employees, Kelly referred to it, seasonal jobs.
Yeah.
That's part of that. A big one for everybody is probably climate change. Seniors leaving the area closer to healthcare.
I'm just going to bring you back to climate change. How is that a threat?
Who brought that one up? No,
No,
Well, I think,
we can all answer it.
100-year storms now are
Yeah.
20-year storms, right?
Right.
We saw a fire very close to our community this year.
right.
We have flooding more often, droughts.
Yeah.
It's gonna affect,
Well, it's going to affect the services you provide in your budget, right? To
Absolutely.
be able to clean that up. Okay, I just needed clarity on
If
that
you
one.
go just to the west of us here, just the opposite side of Caladar and Cloyne, there is maybe 10 kilometers, 8 kilometers of road where it's completely devastated. I think a tornado went through.
Right.
That most likely would never have happened 20 years ago. That's what, okay.
Go
It was
ahead.
it's just the amount of dead wood and fuel in the forest floors, dangerous.
So last year we had a Dureco.
Mhm.
It did keep so it happened the May long weekend of last year, the start of the tourist season, like literally. That's the day it starts. So that dramatically affected us for months.
Mhm.
And then this year we had a fire ban, rightly or wrongly, which kept cottagers away and campers away, because who's coming to camp without a fire?
Mhm.
So we talk about how beautiful this area is, but there's also a bit of a hazard to it, right? We're in the middle of a forest here. And people are catching on to that. So one of my fears, to go back to the very beginning of this day, actually, now that I think about it, is that there will be less and less people coming here because of that, right? What if a tree falls on my house in the middle of winter? What if there's another Dureco?
Right,
What if there's a massive forest fire in Plevna?
right.
What will we do? Right? Maybe that's why there's so many cottages and houses for sale.
Have you seen an increase in insurance prices too, in terms
100% there
of
has been.
coverage? Okay,
Yes.
yeah,
The only reason that I probably didn't really get my rates jacked up last 2 years ago when a 100-foot pine did fall on my house, is probably because that is the first claim on that house ever. But if that happens again, I'm sure,
Yeah.
they might be okay with me. It happens a third time,
Mhm. Mhm.
you're kind of on your own.
Okay.
So we got succession planning for the municipality. We can have in the next 10 years, there'll be quite a few retirements. So to be able to replace, with skilled staff might be, we're gonna have to work at that. That's something that's gonna be important over the next 5 to 10 years or less, really. And not only for municipalities, but also for local businesses. We see it used to be kids took over mom and dad's resort. It's not always the case anymore. The resorts are not resorts. Somebody buys it up and cottage for each kid and they're all happy, right? Or mom or dad's retiring from their business they've built up and kids don't want to take it over. So we're seeing quite a bit of that happening now.
Right.
Hard to find contractors to get jobs done often.
Mhm.
So you might be on a 2-year waiting list to get a porch built kind of thing, depending. Obtaining, and this is probably, I think it's Ontario wide right now, but obtaining volunteers for emergency services. So volunteer based, especially volunteer based is really tricky. EFR, fire, all of that right
Mhm.
now. Costs, just equipment, infrastructure, OPP, everything
Right.
has gone through the roof. So it's an invasive species.
Right. Oh, invasive species, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Policing, do you have an OPP detachment near here?
It's about what, 40 kilometers, 40
Okay.
kilometers away.
Oh, so it's.
Okay.
Okay. Mm. Great.
Yeah, but they don't have coverage 24 hours.
They have coverage 24 hours, but it's closest to the call now.
Mhm.
So if you call the police in Plevna, and it's not, depending on the severity of why you're calling, closest to the call could mean an hour.
Right. Right. Any other groups want to add to opportunities and threats that we haven't covered?
Just one of the threats, Corey sort of touched on it, but we had a little discussion about this. So I guess a threat and possibly like a concern, maybe is a better word, is when properties are being sold and they're not being purchased by someone who wants to live here.
Mhm.
So I feel like we're going to see more and more properties being bought and sold by seasonal people. And while they do contribute to the tax base, they are not here all year round.
Mhm.
They do not have as much of a vested interest as people who live here. How can they? It's not their fault,
Mhm.
but it's a concern.
Mhm.
Living here in the dead of winter is very different than visiting here in the middle of July. So that's a concern. And then the other thing we came up with for opportunities was there's got to be a way to get our students who leave to go to school or what have you. There has to be a program, some sort of incentive to get them to come back here.
Right.
And that might be in the way of housing or something to do with opening a business. Because strangely enough, for the most part, they would like to come back here.
Mhm.
You know, when we were kids, we couldn't wait to get out and never come back. But a lot of the kids that I see graduate out of our high school, they want to be here,
Right.
but they can't necessarily afford whatever they need to do. So some sort of program to get them to come back and
Yeah.
contribute to the community.
Right. Yeah.
I think there's about 7 of us here right now who have done exactly that, Stephanie, in this room right here, that have left and gone to school and come back here to work, or drove to wherever to work, or left and
Mhm.
had a career out somewhere and moved back to retire. So
Mhm.
it's happening a lot. It really is.
You know what? I'm not surprised because I was just in another small municipality last week and I actually did a focus group with high school students, right? And not a lot of services. And I asked them, I said, what do you like living here? And they're like, we know everybody. We like this community. It's friendly. We care about each other. And seeing that from a group of, 16 to 18-year-olds, I was going, and they would like to come back and they would like to have opportunities and they would like to stay in their community. So I think sometimes there's this assumption that people want to leave and never come back. And it's amazing that, and I don't know if that's a trend. I don't know if that's, going forward or just post-COVID or whatever it is, but you do see that, younger people are wanting to stay in their communities. They see like, this is great. Look what I have access to.
I had, just before I left one of my last jobs, I had my day reprioritized and got to listen to a speaker from the University of Ottawa talking about managing across generations. And she was making the point that our parents were like the frog in the pot. And gradually, you kept your head down, nose to the grindstone, thought you'd be noticed. Then we come along and we're kind of like that, but we were more adventuresome and we look for jobs and we did this stuff. But not so much about work-life balance, but the generation that follows us is definitely about work-life balance. And there's maybe 300 people in this room and they ask for a show of hands. What do they want? And everybody under 30 had their hand up. I want work-life balance.
Mhm.
So, and you can get that here.
Mhm.
It depends what you want for quality of life.
Right.
If you want Cadillacs or BMWs in your driveway, okay, fine. You want the boat and everything, then you better have a good job and you may not get that here. But if you want just one of those or something, you can do it.
Mhm. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Brooke. Go ahead.
Oh.
The idea of like during COVID, a lot of people ended up, the kids were remotely doing school
Mhm.
and a lot of the parents were remotely working in that. Up here it was a little more difficult because of the quality of satellite and everything else, but things are getting improved more, like we do have better reception, we get a few more cell towers and stuff like that. That's an opportunity for somebody to come here and work
Mhm.
remotely from their
Mhm.
home. And if we keep improving it, that shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
I was just gonna share some things group two had that wasn't mentioned. So opportunities is our connectivity. I know we have that, but it also creates work from home and it also brings our volunteer base.
Yeah.
If younger families can come here and work from home, or they'll be a volunteer firefighter, or they'll be a volunteer on our community hall groups. So I think connectivity is a huge one. Tourism as well, which I think we have. Attracting young families. We also discussed some municipal building leasing opportunities for businesses, potentials. CIP expansion.
I'm just gonna ask, do you own buildings right now that you could lease out to business or groups?
So we own a lot of community halls,
Oh,
which
you do?
are
Okay.
hubs to our
Right.
community, but it may be something to look at, renovations or ways to incorporate those into other business leasing opportunities.
Right. What about, and I'm just throwing it out there in terms of youth sports or anything for families, is that?
Yeah, we really don't have anything here. I know in Cloyne, they try to run a soccer club in the summer, but there isn't a lot of
Okay.
activities for younger groups. It's a distance to get to those.
Right. Right.
We also had Crown Land as opportunity. And so we currently run a summer camping program. We looked at an opportunity as winter tourism and winter camping, ways to make it 4 seasons here.
Mm-hmm.
So those were our opportunities.
All right.
And our threats, interest rates. I'll wait.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, the rising cost and interest rates, right?
Yeah, it's a huge issue for sure.
Yeah.
Cost of living, I might be repeating some of these. Another threat we had, and it may be impact to our workforce, is mental health.
Right.
I think we're seeing that here. I think we're seeing that through COVID.
Okay.
It's becoming an issue, and lack of services.
Okay. Are you seeing that in an issue like within the municipality or the residents or?
I think I feel, yes, it is our residents, our younger, I mean, we have some students that don't even go to high school anymore because of mental health. I
Right.
think we have seniors that have mental health through COVID and isolation. And I just don't think it's something that a lot of people talk about, but I think it's an issue we're seeing here.
Right. Okay.
I have one more that
Yeah.
we never talked about it, but a threat would be, I think I'm starting to see some homelessness in the area as well. Honestly, if you drive around, we're starting to see people camped out on Crown land. And that's what they're doing for 12 months a year now, stuff like
Right.
that. They're kind of getting in off the main areas, but that's what they're doing. They're living in their car, living in their, so we're starting to see some of that here, which is, I think, fairly new for us.
Okay. And is that just sort of isolated or is there starting to be a bit of a group forming?
It's fairly isolated, but
Okay.
because we're the municipality is so huge and so much of it is Crown land that it's kind of popping up
Right.
here and there. And you don't even notice it unless you start cruising some of those back roads for this or for that. And that's where we're starting to see it. So it's kind of, and we're getting some calls from people saying that people have squatted on their property in the woods what can you do about it? Like, we're getting that kind of
Right.
stuff now, and it's kind of, it's really not the town, it's not a township, it's more an OPP issue, but
Mhm.
at the same time, it's starting to see, and I don't remember dealing with that before.
Okay,
and I'm
that's
starting
interesting.
to,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
There's no homeless encampments yet.
Pardon me?
There's no homeless
There's
encampments
there's
yet.
none.
We don't
Okay.
want them either.
Yeah, no. Well, no one wants to, on either side, right?
When they're homeless, are they coming with a tent? Are they coming with an old travel trailer?
We're seeing a little bit of everything. We're seeing some tents. We're just seeing a car. They're sleeping in their car. Like I said, they're packing in somewhere off the beaten path where they think, they won't be seen or where they're good. And then but people are reporting that, so I'm kind of getting some of that now as, so somebody parked in my backfield there and I need them off my property. They've been there for 3 months and I just found out, and that's, it's called the OPP, but that's what we're starting to see. I'm sure some trailers too. I'm sure there's people living in some RVs as well that,
Mhm.
as well.
Right. Wow. Okay. Well, I would just go around, and I like to do this in the end. You don't know that I like to do it. I'm just going to go around, and could you name your top opportunity? Just one, if you had to pick one. I'm going to start in the middle with you, Mayor.
I think our top opportunity, and I will probably change this by the end of the day, but right now, at short notice, I'm going to go tourism and recreation. We have an established base. We can build on that. We have, the astronomy park and so on. All facilities that we can build on to further development.
Yeah. Okay. Sarah?
I have to say the same as the mayor. I think it's tourism and recreation is our biggest opportunity.
Okay. Cory? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that as well as, and we didn't write down economic development. I think there's good opportunity here for lots of just one. I'm just gonna be quiet here. Yeah,
Okay.
same thing.
Wayne? Okay. Eric? Okay. Mhm. Okay.
Yeah, I think the younger generation and the opportunities.
You got me there. I'd like to see opportunity for development. I don't know if that's down there or not.
We can add it. Development of
Attracting more people.
attracting more people. Okay. Yeah.
Tourism has been the backbone for generations, and I think it'll continue for
Okay.
quite some time.
And then Roy, you get your top opportunity, and then you're going to tell me your top threat,
Tourism.
and then threat.
I can't see them from
Yeah,
here.
okay, well. Yeah, okay, here, you hold it and I tick. All right, top threat.
I'm gonna say climate change.
There's climate change. Oh, there it is. Okay. Then I'll do quickly, Vernon.
Aging population.
We didn't have that on.
Oh, okay, we're gonna add that. Fred,
Yeah, the aging populations.
aging population. Okay. Jerry, top threat. Yeah. Yeah, well, it's everything, right? It's roads. Your climate change?
increasing costs.
Okay.
They're not ready for growth.
Yeah. Okay. You only get one. What keeps you up at night? No, no, that's not, okay. 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 Yeah. Not ready for growth. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? I think some of it sort of ties into, we can sort of do, but I like doing this because what it does is it really brings up what's on top of your mind, right? When you're thinking of your strategic plan, kind of going forward, going, okay, what are really our opportunities that we can capitalize? And what do we have to mitigate when we see the threats to be able to achieve what we want to achieve in the next 3, 5, 15 years, right? Where do you see your municipality being? And what we always say is, when I'm talking about my municipality in 15 years, what do I want it to look like? Because this is when you have to start planning for that.
I'm just curious to see what the focus groups have to say if you ask these, when you, because you'll be asking them these same questions now. Because there's a lot of different groups with a lot of different ideas. So we may think we know what people want, but.
Well, it's interesting because, yeah, we just wrapped up something else last week and it's amazing. It's the same themes that came up. And one of the things that, and I don't know if your focus groups will say, and it's interesting when you talked about your staff, is communication of knowing what's going on, right? And sometimes a lot of the issues that the focus group, that the groups will have is sometimes lack of communication, internet infrastructure, being able to reach and know what's going on.
I think that's an excellent point, but North Frontenac has great staff and we've got a really good website and staff is really good at getting the word out about things. You know,
Yeah.
mess up every now and then, but they're getting better and better.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to be part of that and say, hey, it's there.
Yeah.
If we could, websites are always complicated. When you get into them, it was easier to find things and so on, it'd be great, but if we can navigate through it, but we have one and staff here are great.
Yeah.
Putting that stuff out there. So I want to see what happens with the focus groups.
Right.
The other thing it didn't show up was short-term rental. It really didn't. Pardon? Yeah, I know, but it didn't show up as short-term rentals, which we'll see what happens out there.
In terms of short-term rentals for seasonal short-term rentals?
Well, everything. There's an undercurrent that people dislike short-term rentals. They're noisy. People don't respect the rental. They don't respect the neighborhood.
Right.
But we have a lot of them
Mhm.
and everybody's got ideas. Do we tax them? Do we do this? Do we enforce this or whatever? But really, we don't get a lot of complaints.
Right.
And there are ways to handle what we've got.
Mhm.
And it's the point out, it could be your good neighbor's kids got to come up and for the weekend with their buddies and at 4 o'clock, they're still partying on the neighbor's dock. It's not a short-term rental, but it's probably, in my opinion, one of the most difficult situations for any municipality in Ontario right now.
Right.
But there are answers to it if we're willing to spend the money.
Okay. Perfect. Great.
We kept you late from the coffee break. But it was good discussion. I think we accomplished a lot. What time is lunch coming, Corey?
12 o'clock? 12 o'clock.
Okay, if we could take a, 5 to 10 minutes, a brief break, and then we'll keep going till lunch. That was a good discussion. I think it's given us a lot of useful information we're going to use later on this afternoon. Right now, we're going to look at what makes a successful strategic plan. And Richard Mittenthal is sort of like a checklist. So you look at them, go through them one by one, a clear grasp of external factors. Yeah, I think we've got that. An assessment of organizational strengths and limitations. We just did that. An inclusive approach. Well, we seem to be working across everybody. An empowered committee, senior leadership involvement, shared responsibility by the board or council and staff, learning from best practices, clear priorities and implementation plan, patience and commitment. Well, the first 2/3 of that we've got. And the last third we're going to work on for the rest of the day. I think we're in good shape. Talked about Roger Martin before. I'm going to talk about him again. He talks about the importance of differentiating between planning and strategy. Planning is easy. Strategy is not. Last time I said that, there was a planner in the audience who disagreed with me. So I start by explaining what Dr. Martin meant by planning. Planning can be, you have an objective, you want to do something. So you assign responsibility, you set a budget, you set a timeline, and you have this wonderful plan, and you see how it goes. I did a strategic plan for a college one time. In their previous strategic plan, their objective was to grow their enrollments in all of their programs, full-time diploma, apprenticeship, everything. And so they did the planning properly. They assigned responsibility to different people to start up a different program or a different apprenticeship trade, set the budget, set the timelines, and everything went like clockwork. They got 3 new diploma programs and 2 new trades programs set up, marketed, curriculum developed, the staff ready to be hired. Only one slight problem with it. They didn't attract a single extra student or a single extra apprentice because they picked the programs that were the easiest to start. You may not know it, but in Ontario, if a college wants to offer an apprenticeship trade, you have to get approval from the ministry, and the ministry consults with the other colleges in the area, and the other colleges can object. So the other colleges would say, well, no, we don't want you starting an electrical apprenticeship program. We've got the infrastructure here for that. They should all come here. And with the diploma programs, they had staff who said, you know, if we start this program, we'll be the only college in Canada to offer it. Turns out there was a good reason they were the only college in Canada to offer it, because no students wanted to take it. So when they redid their strategic plan, they're more strategic about it. One of the things they did is they looked at the 10 most popular diploma programs across all of Ontario, and that data is easy to get. And they found of the 10 most popular programs, they're missing 3 of them. So it was pretty easy to pick which 3 programs they were going to start. And believe it or not, they got lots and lots of students. For the apprenticeship trades, they picked the 2 where they had the most apprentices in their catchment area. They had to fight the other colleges to get it. But one of the things that they said to the ministry is, we want you to come to it was Barrie, it was Georgian College. We want you to come to Barrie, and we're going to call all of the electrical contractors here, and you can explain to them why you want their apprentices to go down to Toronto for their trades training. They chose not to come. They chose to grant the status anyhow. So planning is easy, but setting the strategy for the planning is hard. When I first read this, it was sort of a little blurb from one of Dr. Martin's books, and I didn't understand it, so I had to read more of it. And what he's really saying, a successful strategy will have 4 key components. The first one is choices. You have to choose to do some things and not others. So you're going to probably have a long, long list of opportunities of what you can do. You can't do everything. You got to pick the ones that you're going to get the biggest bang for the buck. And it has to be integrated. So I think we're seeing a lot of integration here. Climate change, tourism, ecotourism, recreation. There's a lot of compatibility, a lot of things that will be in alignment. I couldn't understand what Dr. Martin meant by positions, where he says the choices explicitly specify a territory in which the organization will play and which ones they will not. But did he mean geographic territory? Did he mean economic sector? What did he mean? And after thinking about it, I think he was deliberately ambiguous. He meant both. We have a client who said they wanted to be the Innovation Center for Eastern Ontario, which is different than saying you want to be an international innovation center. So it can be geographic, or it can be economic sector. And you're focusing pretty much on the services. You don't have a whole lot here in manufacturing, which makes sense. Most important one is the strategy you select is the objective is to win. You want a strategy that's going to allow you to be better than everybody else in that particular area. You've got lots of strengths, got lots of opportunities. So just pick the ones that you're going to be the best at. In a few minutes, you're going to start reading, each group is going to start reading 2 strategic plans that we selected. We typically read about 30 to 40 or 30 to 50 strategic plans, trying to find ones from similar municipalities. I will tell you, it's somewhat difficult to find really good strategic plans for the smaller townships. A lot of the ones that we found were like 50, 60, 70 pages long, which if we had given you 6 of those to read, I suspect you wouldn't have read them. Oh, and by the way, as part of the project here, you're going to get 2 documents from us at the end. One will be a strategic plan, which will typically be about 6 to 8 pages. The other will be what we call a final report. And you got your interim report, which had some of the document review and the literature. You're going to get another report on this session today. You're going to get another report on the results of the focus groups and the online survey and the town hall meetings. And then you'll get another report about the last strategic planning session. We put all of that into one document. And the reason we do that is there'll be times where someone either on council or in staff is looking for some information. They need it as a resource material. And I think, Corey, sometimes the ministry will say, can you prove to us you did a SWOT analysis as part of your strategic planning? You pull out one document, everything's in there. So I'm not going to read everything that's on the screens because you can probably read that quicker than I can. And we are running a little bit behind schedule. But when you go into your small groups, we want you to, each group will have 2 plans. Pick out the things that you like and pick out the things that you dislike. And full disclosure here, one of the plans in there is the County of Frontenac strategic plan. And we were advised by your colleagues at Central Frontenac that we did not have their latest strategic plan. And either it wasn't up on the website when we were looking or we missed it. And we'll also let you know that, spoiler alert, the County of Frontenac's plan that is in your materials, it's not one we would recommend that you emulate. But we thought it would be useful for you to know what the county's priorities are. Don't care. When you read it, if you think it's a great document, you want to copy it, you can overrule us. Yeah. Well, the 6 that we picked aren't necessarily the ones we thought were the 6 best, but we're 6 we think that you can learn something from each and every one of them. Now, I think our lunch is coming in about 20 minutes, so we'll get started now. If you want to pick up a sandwich or whatever, and a soup or whatever, and work through lunch, that's great. If you want to take a break for a half an hour over lunch, that's great too. That's whatever's going to work for you. I'm going to mix up the groups a little bit because we try to get different people working together. So who was in group 1? Fred, it's hockey season. You've just been traded to team 2. Okay, well, Stephanie, you've been traded to team 3. Oh, I thought you had so much potential. Who is in 2? Okay. Tara, you're now in team 1. Who is in team 3? Kelly, you're in team 3, and Eric, you're in team 1. All right. Everyone knows. Oh, guess I should tell you which plans you're working on. Group 1. Oh, Centre Wellington, North Glengarry, and Cornwall. You'll notice that all 3 groups got Cornwall. It's a 1-page document. That doesn't mean we're encouraging you to end up with a 1-page strategic plan, but we thought it was insightful to see just how much information you can convey in 1 page. Group 2, Frontenac County, Quinte West, and Cornwall, and Group 3, Port Moody, Whitewater, and Cornwall. So should everyone come back to this room at 12 o'clock to pick up their lunch? All right. Each group should look at the three plans, pick out the features that you really like and you'd like to see in your strategic plan. Pick out the features that you really dislike, that you want us to avoid. And it's always nice if when we get back together, we have a consensus, but that doesn't always happen.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Do you print hard copies?
That means I have the mic. All right, welcome back. Thanks for lunch. That was very nice. Okay, we're a little bit behind, but we will speak very quickly and get through this. I'm just kidding. We're gonna catch. I'm just kidding. We'll just catch up. Okay, so you've gone through your plans. So what we're gonna do is go through with them alphabetical order. So we'll be able to see, so everybody can sort of follow where we are. And as we said, is to kind of look at, you know, what you liked, what you didn't like about the plans. And we're going to start with Cornwall. So everybody's seen this one. So we'll see if there's like the same themes that are coming together, which is probably a good, then there might be some consensus of what you might like to see in your plan. So I'm just going to pick on group 2 to get us starting. What didn't you like about this plan? Sometimes I like starting with the negative. Yeah. Oh.
Too short of timeline. One page is just too short. Very basic for a big city. Doesn't talk about who's responsible for what. That's it.
Okay. Did you get that? Okay. Anybody else on what they didn't like?
I thought it was a little vague. It's just a one-page thing and, you know, they couldn't go into too many specifics.
Right. Yeah. Any other groups that want to add to what they didn't like?
So for group 1, we noticed that it morphed into a bit of a work plan.
Okay, yeah.
There wasn't, and this is personal, I like it, there wasn't a message from the mayor or the CAO.
Mhm.
I think that's extremely important.
Yeah. Group 3? What didn't you like? Anybody else? Or does that cover it? So basically, yeah, it's too short, no timeline. It's pretty basic, vague, and that morphing into a work plan can be creep that happens. And then, yeah, the overall message from the mayor, people want to hear what you have to say. Okay, what did you like? Is there one or two things that you pulled out that you did like, or was it all around kind of like, I don't want to see this in our plan? Is there any? Yeah.
Just mission, we just wrote down mission and vision up front for people to see.
Okay. Yeah. Just out of curiosity, did you like the mission and vision? Was it compelling? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I was
I
like,
can't remember, so it mustn't have been too compelling.
can't be that compelling. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Brooke.
We had that it was very easy to read and then concise. You didn't have to look through 12 pages to
Right.
find what you were
Yeah.
looking for. It was as much as it is short, it was very easy to read.
Right. I'm going to ask one question. Do you think it would be easy for city staff to pick up and to use as a starting point?
I think, yes, to the point now, this is what it is. You can try and go outside those 4 or 5 or 6 action items. You may have issues because you have a boss.
Right.
And the boss reports to the council and council said, this is what it is. It could create other issues at the staff level or delivery level.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have thoughts on that? Brennan, no? Pretty much everything? Okay, sounds good. All right. Now, Center Wellington, who had that one? That was you guys? Okay. And that's going to be the second one. If people want to follow along or take a glance at that one while they kind of have their comments. All right. So what did you like about it?
Was surprised I was the secretary. So the like is that the goals and objectives are, were on one page.
Okay.
This one wasn't, one that we particularly liked, so that was the only like. The dislike was, it started out really convoluted. There was a lot of information at the beginning. And then there was a lot of detail with the work plan included. So those were the dislikes. Oh, that's Glengarry, sorry.
Okay,
Sorry, I have them in the wrong order on my page.
that's okay. Let's
Okay.
start. So Wellington, what did you like?
Wellington,
Can we say
thanks.
the goals and objectives are on one page or no?
yes, they were.
Huh.
And that was a like. And then it was visually appealing.
Okay,
It didn't have a work plan. We thought it was a good thing because then you can set that out as you move along through the years with staff and council with small pieces. Yeah, so we thought it was well crafted, easy to read, and all the goals were on one page. It was visually appealing and had no work plan. Those were the things we liked.
and how long was it? How many pages was it? You know? 13.
Dislike was too long and there was some fluffy pages with no content.
Oh, really? Wow.
Don't need a blank page or.
Oh, you don't want your picture? Well, yeah, well, yeah. Now, and I'm gonna ask the same question. If you handed that to city staff, would it be easy for them to go, great, this is a strategic plan, this is where we're going, this is how we're gonna start? Okay, yeah.
We talked about was council doesn't do this, staff do this. So you have to give them enough direction, but they know more than we do.
Exactly, yeah.
So let them go and use their imagination and their experience and what they know better than we do. And this plan, even the messages from the mayor and the CAO were easy to read.
They were.
Now, we read Glengarry's and I stopped reading because just forget it.
Great,
This was nicely spaced out, you know, one page
yeah,
with picture. That was good.
yeah, okay, good. Okay, we'll get back to Glengarry. We'll move to, oh, yeah, we did, like, did I miss anything in terms of, no? Okay, like the language? Yeah. Okay. Right, yeah. Yeah, sort of kind of progressive language. Yeah. Yeah.
Further to the mayor and Darwin's point, it allowed staff to interpret or define their achievables based on very loose goals, loose direction, and allowed for some interpretation.
Okay. So you can see it cascading down. Yeah.
I'm just looking at it now for the, you know, and it's kind of neat at the end with the acknowledgements where they acknowledge all the people that contributed to the street plan, just not staff and council.
Council's pictures there though. You said, never mind. I agree.
I think that's I personally, I'm going to throw in my opinion here, but I think that's an important part. When you go ask people for their opinion, you should acknowledge that they participated into the whole. So that, yeah, so they don't think it just kind of flew out the window, right?
Consultant's name's not.
Pardon me?
Consultant's name's not on it.
Oh, the consultant's name shouldn't be on it
Why not?
because it's your plans.
Somebody put it together.
Someone put it together. I guess that's a.
We recommend highly that you not put on the strategic plan. It's actually in the final report. So if somebody really wants to know.
Yeah. Just as a consultant, sometimes it gets thrown back going, well, I didn't do it. The consultants did it, right?
No consultant or qualifications or disclosures or whatever.
Okay, okay, moving on. Oh, Frontenac County. Oh, no, sorry, we were at, Glengarry. There we go. So,
Go, you're off.
I think you have half of it wrote down already.
right,
So we liked that the goals and objectives were on one page.
yeah. It's already there.
And this is the
Check.
one that we
Yeah.
didn't particularly care for. And then what we didn't like is that it started out really convoluted, so a lot of detail without getting.
Did you have to read through it to get to what they really, the essence of it?
Yes, so there's a lot of unnecessary information,
Right.
and then it had a very detailed
It's like,
working plan.
it's like a welcome letter.
Yeah.
Come on, move to our township. Here's what-
Yeah, yeah, it kind of leads people, it was people attention spans of like houseplants these days, like you got to capture them right off the bat, right? I'm not saying here, just in other
What,
places.
what, I got halfway through and quit.
Yeah,
I-
oh yeah, no,
I was getting nothing
absolutely.
out of it.
Yeah, okay. Anything else? It,
It
yeah,
included the work plan.
and it included the work plan.
We think too detailed.
And I'm going to ask again, could staff pick this up and, start working on how does this cascade down to my job and my priorities and my day-to-day life? Could they follow this plan? Do you think? Would it be complicated after they read the welcome letter?
If you just read the welcome letter, I think you'd have staff reading that several times, or I just don't care anymore. That's what they're giving me.
Right.
And then when
okay.
you read the work plan at the back, strategic focus assets, conduct a cost benefit analysis, review the curbside collection program. That is day-to-day work.
That's
We
day-to-day.
expect of staff. Staff here are more than capable of doing this.
Yeah.
And we really don't need to tell them how to do it.
Mhm.
But as we
Mhm.
work something out, this is what we're looking for, and you make it happen.
Mhm, mhm. Any other comments? Yeah.
When they get into that level of detail, it just looks like an annual plan. I don't
Yeah.
see it being applicable as you move forward.
Yeah,
4 or
yeah.
5 years from now.
Yeah. Because that's what it is, right? It's kind of the vision of where you want to get to there. Yeah. Okay.
To reiterate Darwin's comment, it doesn't allow for vision on the part of staff. It pigeonholes everybody into this is what you have to accomplish.
Yeah.
And doesn't leave any room for opportunity.
Other comments? Not, we're going to Port Moody. Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of strategic plans that we read that we don't include. The two most common problems, it's too operational, very specific about what's supposed to happen, and it's too ambitious. There's too many things to do. So you're picking up on those things already now, but things to keep in mind when we get to the priorities in another hour or two.
All right, Port Moody.
So I'll speak for our group.
Okay.
Strategic priorities are nice and clear. Differentiated between staff and council. Talked about core services, then strategic planning.
Mhm.
Great layout, awesome pictures which promoted the community, which was a
Right.
really good point. They talk about what the plan is for and why they're doing it.
Are you behind like 5 points?
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
I'm reading here.
Yeah.
Clear priorities, differentiation between staff and council.
Yeah. Is, yeah,
Talks about
yeah. Would you think that would help? I'm not getting a headache, but I'm just asking, do you think that's going to help staff too, when you see the does staff understand the differentiation between
I think the staff understands it. I don't think
Think-
the constituents understand it.
Okay, and that's important as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I don't think sometimes councilors, especially when we do understand it, we're trying to do a good job, but every now and then it morphs into something where we're getting too involved and we have to be pulled back. And
Right.
we have
yeah.
a administration that does that gently, which is fine.
Okay,
Great layout and awesome photos. It really promotes the community.
mhm.
They talk about what the plan is for and why they're doing it. We 8 pages seems about a right length. Good read. Would like to see CAO message and that aligns with council's priorities. That wasn't mine, by the way. Nobody, I promise.
All right. Is there anything you didn't like?
I wrote, "Well, nothing we didn't like, just should add message from CAO." And again, that was not
Okay.
my suggestion.
Right.
Hmm.
All right, sounds good. Quinty West?
So we had, we really liked their graphics. I think it was similar to the one that you just had.
But sorry, what was wrong with the graphic? Is
We
there-
liked
Oh,
the
you liked-
graphics.
You like the
Yeah,
graphic.
it's
Yeah,
very appealing
Okay.
to look at.
yeah,
We really liked their mission and vision statement. It was very visible, but also the wording of it was really good.
right.
We liked that the headings were more direct and then the descriptions, like the goals and the action.
Mhm.
And I don't think their action was still pretty basic. I think that's kind of what we had for that one, unless you guys had more stuff down.
Okay.
I don't
No.
think we had any dislikes, but we kind of more just looked at them in what we liked about them and not
Yeah, no,
necessarily
that's
what
good.
we
And
disliked.
there's
but-
something like Cornwall where everybody said it's way too short, right? Yeah. Okay. And then the final one, Whitewater? Yeah.
So we liked the corporate value section.
hmm
And the fact that it was a 10-year plan. I think the
Was it
focus was on 10 years,
Right.
which is great. The rest the rest is all kind of dislikes. There was no message from mayor or CAO. No explanation of why doing the strategic planning.
hmm
Graphics not as nice as some of the others.
hmm
Too much information on the second page. And I don't think it's accessible. One of our members was colorblind, so they were having trouble kind of reading it because of the colors of
Right.
different stuff.
Okay.
on there. That it focused on a 10-year plan and the corporate values section.
Okay. Now I'm gonna do one last thing with everybody. I did? Oh, I did. Oh, my goodness, sorry.
And
Count,
just some clarification, because we talked before about, I said I didn't like the County of Frontenac plan. I don't like the one that's in your book for lots of reasons. The mayor talked about the current one, which I confess I have not read. But he brought up something that's important. When we're doing the stakeholder engagement, we call it the squeaky wheel phenomenon. It could be at a public meeting, it could be in a focus group, it could be on the survey, where you get a small vocal group that really wants to emphasize 1 or 2 points, and you have to watch that that doesn't take over the whole process. One of the things we do with the survey is we like to look at not just the total responses, but where they're coming from geographically in the municipality, where they're coming from in the age groups, where they're coming, whether they're permanent or seasonal residents. Now, with a small sample size, sometimes it's really hard to analyze, but sometimes something just jumps out at you. That there's one part of the township that might be complaining about their roads, and the other part of the township says, hey, your roads are great, which you would probably know that before we start, but those are the types of things that come out. I just did the analysis of another plan last week, and I was surprised because they have very similar demographics to North Frontenac. You know which group wants seniors homes the most? 45 to 55. So they could be planning ahead, or more likely, it's their parents. Or both. So just something to learn from from the Frontenac County to strategic plans. You know, good things and bad things about the format, and watch how you interpret the feedback you get from your residents.
All right, for North Frontenac, yeah, Frontenac County. So besides all of that, likes, dislikes?
We said it was very wordy and long. We actually only read 3 pages and we kind of got bored and we moved on. To be quite frank.
You're my kind of person. Is there anything you liked about it?
Not really.
No.
Did you guys find anything? I don't.
Just the fact we didn't have to read it all.
Yeah, well, there you go. Okay, this is all good. I want to do one last thing before we move on to the next one. It's going to take about 2 minutes, and I call it kind of like the failed dinner party exercise really quickly, because you've all identified what you like, you don't like. So the failed dinner party is like you're planning a dinner party, and let's make sure that it's going to fail, right? So, you know, you don't invite guests, you don't buy the food, you don't buy the booze, you invite the wrong. Now, what I'd like to do is go around saying, you're going to write a strategic plan. It's your strategic plan. What do we have to do to make sure it's going to be an epic failure? So instead of saying, what do we have to do that it's going to be great? It's what are we going to have to do to make sure it's going to be an epic failure? And what we do is we twist it around, because some of us think really well in the negative compared to thinking in the positive. Some of us, me. All right, it's going to be an epic failure. Everybody gets one thing that they'd like to say. We'll do a quick roundtable.
Too wordy.
Too wordy. Yeah. Anything else? Epic failure. What do we have to make sure?
It's too vague.
Too vague.
It's a work plan.
We're going to create a wordy, vague work plan.
Too ambitious.
Yeah. Wordy, vague, ambitious work plan.
Not inclusive.
And not inclusive. Right. Perfect.
It lacks vision. You just want
Oh, yeah.
inspired by reading.
Yeah, and no vision, no inspiration. Yeah, yeah, no visual. We're doing it in Roman 12-point font, double space, the way we had to submit our essays on a dot matrix printer back in like 1988. Awesome. So do I. Okay. So that's good. So flip it around. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
This is nothing to do with plan itself, my page. And I can see having this presented at a council, and some bright light is going to pick this up and say, how much did you pay for one page?
Ah, yes.
I understand that at the council.
Yeah.
Go back down. Let's see it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and cram all of that in one page. Yeah.
We just say call the mayor.
Okay. So now, you know, he's going to write you a really nice strategic plan. That's not going to be too wordy. It's not going to be vague. It's not going to be a work plan. It's going to have to include there's going to be a vision. It's going to be inspirational. There's going to be a great visual, and it's certainly going to be more than one page. Off to you. This is now you're on.
I have a question for the staff. Do you have a good data bank of photos of the township that reflect what a beautiful place this is?
Yes, we do.
Perfect. We'll need them.
Get some nice ones right now too with the colors, because this is a perfect, some nice fresh ones too. So great.
I'm never sure whether to put this. Never sure whether to put this slide before or after the previous exercise. Because this is the contents that you sometimes see in a strategic plan and sometimes you don't. They don't all have a message from the mayor. Sometimes it's a message from the mayor and council. Sometimes there's a message from the CAO. Sometimes there's a message from the CAO and staff. I think I heard that you want a message from the mayor and from the CAO. Did I hear it correctly? And a short message.
One of them had, it was a joint message from the mayor and CAO. Would that be something we would consider or no? Would we have two separate ones? Okay, just whatever you.
Who we are? Want anything about the history of North Frontenac? Want a map to show where you are in the province?
Right, Mayor, if you can use your mic, please.
Do we really want who we are? We have a vision, we have a mission. You know, you can have half a page saying who you are. If everybody wants it, that's a great idea, but I think it's fluff. I don't know. I would be looking to delete it, but some people might like it. And it's kind of what you like and what you don't like.
So if you were a business coming to North Frontenac, would you read something like this? Or possibly a new resident, especially a business, so is that, that's what I'm kind of thinking, but I don't know.
We do have the welcoming letters and everything else, right? So.
But I think it's important. It doesn't have to be long, Jerry. Maybe it's just a short paragraph, but I think it's important for what Corey said.
I would agree with that. It's actually a huge topic of discussion in this township. Most of the time, who we are, who's here, where the families came from. I think it's a huge big deal. We definitely need something in there.
I'm in agreement. I think it's a very important message for a municipality that has such strong community and resiliency and natural beauty and wonder. It's definitely a valid statement of who we are.
I'll just add that I agree with Corey's statement too. I think it's an important document for potential investors to look at, and I think who we are is important.
We're going to talk about vision, mission, and values in a minute. Strategic priorities are given. You're going to have strategic priorities in your plan. KPIs and outcomes.
Yeah, key performance indicators. Does that not tend to morph us into a work plan?
I've seen it done both ways. It's extremely hard to do effectively in a strategic plan. I've seen it done, but it does tend to morph into a work plan or an implementation plan. It takes a long time to develop effective key performance indicators because you have to work out what you want to have as your KPIs. Then you have to look at, well, how do we collect this data? And hopefully it's data that you're already collecting, that you're not creating a lot of extra work. Then you may not have a benchmark for those. So it can become a very long-term process. With another client that we're just finishing up, they put in as one of their strategic priorities to develop KPIs over the life of this strategic plan. And you don't have to decide that now, but it's something we'll talk about later on, maybe today and definitely next session.
So our previous strategic plan, it gives responsibility to who's going to do what. And then what we did from that was then we would report on at the end of each, was it each year, Kelly, or each kind of whoever was given that responsibility was responsible to report to say this is completed or it's not completed, or why it isn't or whatever. So is that something normal, or is that getting too far into a work plan that way? Or I'm not really sure what, that's a good question.
What's the group think?
I think it's a work plan.
Yeah, I found that it went too far into the work plan and just, there's one item on there that staff brought back and then council chose to not go ahead. So I think it kind of made it a bit awkward for staff because we're like, this is what you wanted and we did the work and then you said no. So I think it makes too much of a work plan and causes some grief.
Does anybody remember the graphic that was in the Port Moody strategic plan? It was a graphic that talked about the mission and vision and the roles of council versus the roles of. I personally like that graphic. Because I think not so much for you, but for your constituents. So if you like that, we could put something similar into your plan.
I think we need that because I think that constituents also need to understand that we have a role, but the township staff has a separate role. We're not anyone's boss. We're more like, at least this is how I feel. We're more like, we're supposed to be working on this together. I don't think anyone sitting here, and correct and step in if I'm mistaken, but I don't think anybody sitting here doesn't have complete confidence that the staff can handle a strategic plan. We don't need to tell them how to do it. So I would say the KPIs and the outcomes do not need to be in there. Because then we're basically telling the staff how to do their jobs. They already know.
It also leaves staff the opportunity to develop them on their own outside of the plan.
An advantage we have as a small municipality, there's a really good working relationship between staff and council. I hope it seems to be that from my perspective. I worked in a larger municipality and there was like 3,000 employees and everybody had a role, everybody had a hierarchy, everybody had a boss, and thou shalt not do this or that. Everybody's restricted. And don't see that here a little bit, but just only for the max that's actually required. So I'd like to give staff as much freedom as they can. If they come back with something we don't think is quite right, they'll gladly go back and fix it.
Sounds good.
No one's getting a raise for that either, just so you ask. It's the second time it's come up today. Fire chief maybe giving someone fails away, I don't know.
These are some things which we recommend you do not include. I think the SWOT analysis that you did is very, very useful, but it doesn't belong in a strategic plan. It belongs in the final report. Findings from the stakeholder consultations, like the final report document, it's going to be 70, 80 pages long. Leave this level of detail in the final report. So you already talked about operational details, organizational charts. Be careful that what you put in a plan that's going to last 4 or 5 years because things change. So you put in an organizational chart and then you want to do a reorganization a year or two down the road and you got an outdated plan. Mission and vision. Which comes first in a strategic plan, the mission statement or the vision statement? Why?
That outlines what your prospects are. Your vision is how you're going to accomplish that.
Is everybody in agreement? Everyone's in agreement, mission comes first?
I think we all start off with a vision and then you develop your vision into your mission.
So we have 1 vote for mission and 1 vote for vision. Do we have a third opinion?
After reviewing the strategic plans you've presented to us, they all have the vision before the mission. So while I don't understand, I'm looking at other plans and being practical.
They can't all be wrong. Or could they? I haven't done a scientific analysis, but my perception is it's roughly 50% put the mission statement first and 50% put the vision statement first. And I'm a diehard agnostic on this. I really don't care.
Well, I'm a fan of the vision first because you have to have a very forward vision of where you want to see yourself. And then the mission takes you to the vision. This is just my personal opinion. So, and when I do this, I usually start working on the vision first. And then there's all the side comments about the mission that goes on a different slide, and they eventually merge together. It's a miracle that really happens.
We may have to put this in the parking lot. I don't think we're going to get a consensus.
Well, we got Center Wellington, vision, mission we value. Cornwall, mission, vision. Glengarry, zip. So you were 3 choices, right? Oh, it doesn't matter? Not really? I don't think it matters.
I thought was interesting as I looked at a number of strategic plans from Alberta. And a lot of them are leaving out mission and vision. All they're showing are priorities, which is interesting. Oh, just to back up a little bit. A mission defines your purpose. It's why you exist. The vision, it extends your mission to an ideal future state. But since Suzanne wanted to do vision first, we're doing vision first. On the left side of your screen are the attributes that you should have in a good vision statement. The key thing is it's got to be broad, it's inspiring, it's uplifting. You don't want something that's really bland and boring. And you also want to aim high. You want big thinking. Don't aim lower because you'll likely achieve that. On the right side of the screen, we've got some vision statements that we like. You don't have to agree with us. A just world without poverty for Oxfam. A computer on every desk and in every home for Microsoft, and that's dated. That's over 40 years old now. Best training, healthy residents, unparalleled care for the resident doctors of Canada. A better everyday life for the many people. IKEA. Transportation that makes Canada safe, healthy, and prosperous. The Transportation Association of Canada. All fairly short, mostly inspiring, big thinking. On the left side of the screen, it's exactly the same as what you saw on the previous screen. On the right side is your current vision statement. The Township of North Frontenac will preserve our unique and pristine natural environment to promote a strong, resilient rural community. Now, typically, groups like you make one of 3 choices. You like the vision statement that you have. You like it for the most part, but you think you could tweak it a little bit, or you want to start over. And it's really up to you what you want to do.
Oh, it's usually me that says something to this. I like it. But I'm beginning to wonder what we talked about, what we would kind of like to see, different ideas. For instance, is it rural community? Do we want to stay a rural community? Or just want to promote a strong, resilient community? And by the way, vision statements and mission statements are just not my cup of tea. But if we're going to have one, I think tweaking this one might be in the cards. Personal opinion.
Based on some of the discussions, like if you read it, we want to preserve our unique and pristine natural environment. It may be just a word change, like while promoting a strong and resilient community instead of to promote. Maybe it's while promoting, just because a lot of our stuff is about economic development. And to me, you know, we're trying to preserve while we grow as well. So I'm not sure that the way it's specifically worded is, they kind of go the same.
Yeah, I agree with Kelly was saying, but I'd like to see that there's a future ahead for us that we'll be growing into, you know. And that's what I think we should have is we're we're going to develop into the future for people.
We don't really need the word rural in there, do we?
Well, I think we should keep that because, I mean, we're always going to be rural. We're never going to become mainstream.
Just one thing that's interesting to keep in mind when we're doing this is, so whenever we apply for a grant, especially a federal or provincial grant, they ask us about our vision and our mission. And so the application that we're writing for that funding often has to line up with that vision and the mission. So really, it's good to keep these somewhat general so that we can make those requests, whether it be, you know, paving for 10 kilometers of road, or whether it be something for the community halls or for, so just keep in mind when you're looking at this, how the importance when we apply for our funding, it's so important that it fits within that, within most of our grants we write. So it's just, I just thought I would throw that out there, something to be aware of.
All right, Corey, is that a reason to keep rural in the description?
Yeah, I'm not meaning that specifically. I'm just saying it's good to have these geared towards something that's gonna meet within our needs for our grant writing efforts as well. That's something to take into consider along with the rest. So I mean, usually I don't write many grants anymore. Brooke will be doing most of that now, or Darwin often will do them. But that was a big, you know, rural, because we're a rural municipality, they able to elaborate on lack of funds or because we're small, rural, you know, this is why we need this help, right? So that word really helped with that, but it doesn't mean it has to stay in. But overall, the vision and mission, it's important to kind of try to take in as much as you can, and that we can apply to our grant writing. It's very important.
I just wanted to read the one out of Quinte West that we really liked was a healthy, vibrant community where generations grow and prosper. I think it's more vague than this kind of changes in the way. I wanted to read it out loud because I thought it was a nice one.
Any other thoughts?
I like this one. I think maybe we just look at, you know, strong, resilient, and maybe along the lines of what Brooke, if there's some other descriptors there. I know you don't want a large number of them, but you know, maybe there's, we look at what our strengths were, maybe there's some wording there other than strong and resilient. I don't have a suggestion right now, but
I'm sensing there's a general agreement that you've got a lot of the right concepts. Perhaps it's a little bit too long. One thing that I wondered about is, don't throw anything at me. Are you really unique?
Well, we are. It depends on what you're comparing us to.
Yeah, are you unique compared to the townships on any side of you?
I would say so. Yeah, compared to the other side of the highway, there's some drastic differences that make us unique.
Okay, what about if you go to the east or the west?
Give me an example. Go ahead.
Reality is, to the west, they have some members of the are a unique population that cause them a lot of issues. Where we seem to be much more in tune with population, and I could be speaking from the wrong songbook here, but we seem to be very much like Leonard. We're very much like Central Frontenac. You know, they're similar size, similar issues, you know, to the townships to the north. We're all unique, but at the same time, we're really not that much different. We all have the same problems, same general population, same general, you know, road systems, towns, and so on and so forth. If we were doing this again, I guess we are, I would take out more, we're talking about, take out the township of North Frontenac. I agree, we take out the word unique. I'd like to see the word vibrant go in. And I, for one, would pull out rural. And the reason I pull out rural is because we've talked about developing the township, promoting the township, encouraging businesses, looking forward to the young people. You really want to move, and I interpret rural as a farming community here. And I think many people would. I don't think we truly are a farming community. We're farming everything. We grow rocks and trees. So I think this needs a rework.
So the definition of rural is countryside, not necessarily farming, so.
I'll let you know.
I agree with the mayor on the unique also. I don't think that needs to be in there. I really don't. And what was you were saying, take out the township of North Frontenac? To say we? Yeah.
All right, we've got documents with that welcome guests and so on. And we have wording in there that welcomes them to North Frontenac while talking about all our special stuff and so on. And I don't think we use the word rural at any given point.
But to Corey's point, though, if rural is used to gain access to grants we otherwise wouldn't get, then we need to take that into consideration. Because if it's been something that we've relied on, and now we're not going to use it, and it does have a negative effect, that's not going to go over well.
Can you give us an example of where you had to use rural for a grant?
So just about all municipal and all provincial and federal grants now, they request your vision and so I just use the word rural to kind of elaborate on, so it's in our statements, but I use it to elaborate on, because we're rural, we don't have the same opportunities that they would have in the city or the same finances. So again, doesn't mean we have to keep it that way. It's just, that's what I've done throughout the past. Doesn't mean we can't change it though. So
You're leveraging the rural.
That's right. I'm
So
using
if
that.
that helps us get
leverage.
grants, then we
Yeah, and
probably
I-
do need to keep it.
That's all.
Right.
So again, you can certainly change it if you
No.
want. We just got to keep in mind.
I think one thing that makes our township unique though, is the number of lakes we have within our borders.
I see unique in dozens and dozens and dozens of strategic plans. And yes, you are all unique in a certain specific way, but there are actually a lot of townships that are similar to North Frontenac.
But we're the center of the universe though. They're not.
But that is self-evident. You really need to say it. I'm going to suggest is, I think there's a consensus that what you have is not bad, but it could be improved. It could be tweaked. This is where we get into homework. If we try to work on it here in the past, where we tried that, you generally in about half an hour, you're very frustrated because it is hard to shorten this. But as the consulting firm, will work with staff to come up with several options that are starting out with what you've got, but tweaking it in several different ways, including the word vibrant, taking out the word unique, and trying to shorten it. You haven't seen some of the really, really awful vision statements that are developed in a group like this, where it's subordinate clause after subordinate clause after subordinate clause. You need 3 breaths to read it. But we're gonna have another planning session in about a month. We'll come back before then. You'll see some options for you to take a look at. We're not expecting you're gonna pick any one of those options, because we're expecting each of you on your own are gonna try to come up with something. But you also, when you see some of the ones that other people come up with, you may say, I really like these specific words, but I think we should be changing this.
Are you going to be asking this question to the focus groups or the public sessions?
Typically don't, but we could. I have in the past and found it wasn't all that productive.
Because I like to talk. But in terms of the vision, it should roll, especially everybody sitting, you should be able to develop a vision statement that it rolls off your tongue, right? You should be able to say, what is the vision? And you shouldn't say, oh, do we have pristine? Do we have unique? It should be able to say, it's a one pitch, it's a one elevator pitch thing. It's just like, And just wordsmithing whatever, that will be a starting point and not, it's like our our vision is to preserve our pristine natural environment to promote a strong community. You can add rural, unique, vibrant, natural, all those rest of it, but it should be short and everybody should know what it is, right? It should project a picture of what you want your township to be. That's just my plug. But yeah, it should just roll off the tongue. And everybody should have a good picture.
I just wanted to add to the discussion on rural and, you know, if we're seeking road funding or grants, we're a rural community. We have rural roads. We don't have urban roads. And we've had a pretty significant grant a few years ago to do a development road project. And I think we got good mileage out of the fact that it was rural. You know, we accepted rural road standards. And I know that's getting specific, but, and Eric can talk about fire, but we're a rural fire department. We're not. And I think that gives you an image of what we have to offer and what we're working with. But, so I like it in there, but.
I don't know if this is your slogan or what it is. 4 seasons, more reasons. Sorry?
From the county or from us? From us.
See, I don't see that anywhere in the room. But when I read it this morning, I've remembered it. It's memorable. The best vision statements and the best mission statements are memorable. People know them.
This is the hardest part every time. When we do this exercise, it's always the hardest part is just switching those around to, so it's not it every time it is so.
We typically hear that going through the other municipality strategic plans is the most fun. Trying to develop a new mission statement or a new vision statement is the most difficult. So we'll go on to the mission statement. Again, on the left side of the screen, the attributes of a strong mission statement. The last one is as succinct as possible. Can you fit it on a t-shirt? And we're talking like a normal size t-shirt and not in 12-point font. You don't have to have both your mission statement and your vision statement really short, but it's helpful to have at least one one that's memorable. On the right-hand side, we've got some examples. I want to start with the bottom one. Making every day matter. That's a seniors community with long-term care, assisted living, supported living, independent living. Their previous mission statement was an entire paragraph that was one sentence with all kinds of subordinate clauses. In the long-term care sector, the staff have to take annual training, which includes every year the mission and vision statements of their employer. And after about 12, 15 years with that mission statement, you know how many of the 350 staff knew it? You're high. You're still looking for the first one. The next year with the new mission statement, roughly 90% knew what it was without prompting. And it was interesting when it was developed and we were testing it with staff meetings and that type of thing. The staff thought it was for them. The families and residents thought it was for them. The pastor said, no, this is for everybody. So it worked. People remembered it and it did motivate them. But some of the other ones, starting at the top, the Humane Society, celebrating animals, confronting cruelty. 4 words, explains why they exist. The next one, we haven't told you who it is. To empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. Who would be that arrogant? Who would be that arrogant? Can you guess? Microsoft. It sounds really presumptuous, but then when you hear it, well, yeah, it's probably accurate. New York Public Library, to inspire lifelong learning, advance knowledge, and strengthen our communities. To spread the power of optimism. Just some examples. Same as before, The left side of the screen is exactly the same as the previous screen, and the right side is your current mission statement.
Since that Four Seasons, Four Reasons slogan was mentioned, how old is that and where do we use it? I think I've only seen it once or twice.
I'm not sure how old it is. Corey might be able to tell you that, but do you want to go ahead?
It was a contest in probably 2006 or 2007, somewhere right around there, contest, and it was actually, it was Four Seasons, More Reasons, whatever. And then we left it at that for a while, and then some were concerned about the whatever, because the kids started saying whatever. So we took the whatever off, and we've left it at that since that.
We've got that, we've got our own song and everything else, eh? Very progressive. We should pull something out of there. I could actually live with North Frontenac, Four Seasons, Four Reasons. Something simple.
Well, yeah, because so everyone keeps talking about tourism and tourism all year round, but the mission statement doesn't talk about that at all. That's about delivery of services. It doesn't even, it has a completely different connotation to it.
Just an observation that I've made. Is the mission statement supposed to speak to the residents or to the council and staff?
I'd say all of them, everybody. I don't think it should be just directed. I think it would be for everyone.
Says there that it should be from the decision makers, which is council, to the stakeholders, which is our residents, taxpayers.
I think it speaks to the council and the staff. This is why we exist. This is what we're going to do. If we need to change this, population will change it for us and it'll change us. It's just that simple. So.
So what's the opinion on your current mission statement? Good the way it is?
No, I don't like it. I don't like the fact that it starts with the Township of North Frontenac's mission. Like we're putting mission in a mission statement. It's like we're adding words to make a paragraph. Like I think it needs a total revamp.
I guess the examples you had didn't say whose mission statement it was. I don't know that we need to say Township and North Frontenac either. I mean, assuming you added it in brackets.
So we added in the brackets so you know who it was and see if you could guess Microsoft.
If I've always liked that Four Seasons, More Reasons. You've had it for a long time. I always thought it was really creative and it represented who we are and just leaves you thinking about all the possible opportunities and activities. I thought of it when I think it was Port Moody had that little caption, an arts community or something. And I was thinking at the time, we would at least probably want that under Township of North Frontenac, Four Seasons, More Reasons. I think we get a lot of mileage out of that.
I like it as well for the same reasons. I think it could be used as a vision statement. It explains, it doesn't say anything, but it explains everything. So
I'm sort of falling back to the vision. I just wrote this down while you guys were chatting. I said, North Frontenac is a vibrant rural community where more reasons and four seasons grow and prosper. Just something I wrote down. She was talking about how things should roll off. I think that's not a bad little thing. I mean, I'm open for interpretation to anybody who could add or take away from it.
The suggestion was made that Four Seasons, More Reasons could fit into a mission statement or a vision statement. Does it matter which?
When you look on the left there, what makes a great mission statement? It's not really describing the organization. It's not really outcome oriented. It's not relative, well, is it relative to all constituents? I don't know. It's inspiring and it's uplifting for sure, but it's not really a message. As succinct as possible. Well, yeah, you could fit it on a t-shirt for sure. I'm just not so sure that it fits within what makes a great mission statement. That's all. I feel like there's not enough there just to say Four Seasons, More Reasons when I look at that.
I think it's not unique and it's kind of boring. It's all there, but I just think we can do better. I think it served its purpose for a long time and did so well. I think we should improve on it.
It's interesting that Four Seasons, Four Seasons, or it's almost like a motto, right? It's not,
It's just a tagline.
it's a tagline and you
Yeah.
see it, I see it when I go through Northern Ontario, like I think Huntsville is enjoy our past, but welcome our future or something like that. It's their mottos, right? I don't know if it's a real mission statement, but something we can capitalize on, like.
We're incorporating that. Four Seasons, Four Reasons, or More Reasons, whatever it is. I'd prefer that to be more of a vision than a mission, because it is a tagline. And people will remember that. That's correct.
I think Fred was going down an interesting path where you take those 4 words which fit on a t-shirt, but you make them part of a longer statement.
Be a vision, I think that's what I want, my intention was, not for a mission statement, but a vision.
Tell us what to do. It tells us where we want to be, and it's completely open. You can use your own interpretation, and it shows we're very proud, and it's year round. So, and you can keep going on and on to rationalize it. But I really like it as a vision statement. I would have issues with it as a mission statement.
If you go back and you look at your opportunities, which are really, opportunities for the strategic plan and where you want to do is trying to tie that vision to the opportunities where, oh, they're rolled up in the corner, which was a lot of, I think it was preserving your natural, it's the 4 seasons, it's developing the winter, it's making, it resonates for everybody who either lives here full-time or on a seasonal basis.
Look at all those check marks. Other than the summer season? If we put that into your vision statement, it all ties in.
I think I think we should. I actually really like this Four Seasons thing because I don't think we should assume people. You'd be surprised how many people think we're just a summer town.
Okay, what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, because my wife tells me my hearing isn't very good. You want to change the vision statement to include the words 4 seasons, more reasons. And you want something new for the mission statement. What would you like in the mission statement? Vibrant?
So just again, a quick reminder, we really use this when we're doing our grants as well. So if we can kind of try to keep some, it doesn't have to be this wording, but something that, that, you know, we can again lead into for all of for our application. I know that there's not a lot right now this year, but who knows? In 3 years, 2 years, there could be lots of grants out there. Who knows? But just something to think about again, just while you're considering.
I really like the 3 words, live, work, and play. It was in one of the mission statements.
Just gonna add that segues into Four Seasons, More Reasons. So if the vision encompasses 4 reasons, more seasons, then the mission could build on live, work, and play.
Just an observation, the Four Seasons, More Reasons doesn't seem to be flowing off everyone's tongue as easily as we think, because everybody's done a different interpretation and put those 4 words in different spots. So just kind of interesting listening as each person talks about it, they have the words in different spots.
You can see that slogan on a t-shirt very easily. Whether it's 4 seasons, more reasons, 4 seasons, 4 reasons, whatever it is, you could see that Frontenac, boom, 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 boom. So, you know. I am sitting here thinking if there's a way to combine the previous mission and vision statements, and I haven't got the words yet, but it started off with, you know, we want to preserve our pristine environment, and we're promoting a strong, resilient and rural community. And here we have sustainable delivery of services to its citizens. Why do we exist? So maybe it's a combination of those 2.
Delivery of service is a given? Like, why is that a mission statement? Like, isn't that part of what we're expected to do? You're supposed to deliver effective, efficient, sustainable delivery of services to you. Isn't that every township?
That would mean you're not unique.
It's a commitment, right?
Well, it is, but why is it in the mission statement? Like, we can,
Actually, I agree very strongly with that. I don't think this is motivating to your citizens at all. It's a
this
given.
one?
It's an expectation. Like,
So East Wellington says we are an active, caring, innovative, safe and connected community. Okay, that just says who we are. So we deliver on that. And their vision is the community to experience life along the Grand River, which is a little bigger than the Mississippi as you go farther south.
The other one we talked about, I think, was the corporate values, which you guys liked, right? In the, was it Port? Would that be a place to put it? Is this pretty much similar to developing corporate values, or is this completely different? Is that?
Let's
yeah,
move
that
on
could
and
be a
take a look
corporate
at,
value.
let's move on, take a look at corporate values and then talk about all 3 together. Fred?
That's looking at Quinte. Yeah, it is Quinte West. Their mission is to provide excellent municipal service and leadership as we work together to make Quinte West a great place to live, work and play. I like that live, work and play in there, and you know, I just like the way that sounds. I think it sounds a lot better than that does.
Can I ask a question? So you guys that ran for council, why did you run for council? Is there something in that you could pick out of that, pull out of that would work towards coming up with something, you know what I mean?
I'm gonna pay you to say that or ask that. Go ahead.
I ran for council because I love municipal government, right? I think it does so much for the community. I'm a bit of a poli-sci guy, so.
But you all had goals coming in as to what you want to see for, I'm sure that you had, you know, I'm going to run for council because I'd like to see this happen in the municipality while I'm in, or these are my there must be something that we could find some wording from your guys' rationale or goals for why you ran for council.
When you run for council, you eventually, and I've been using this a lot lately, you're one vote out of 7. So you're not going to make anything happen without a consensus. And a 4-3 consensus is nice, 5-2 is better, 6-1, 7-0 is great. So you know when you're running that if you're going to be elected, you are going to be elected to serve the population. And damn the torpedoes, you're prepared to actually do it. So you can think about all these great goals and whatever else, you know, wind turbines and whatever it may be. But that's just, the people they want the roads fixed, they want their taxes kept reasonable, you know, they want emergency services, they want the basics. And if they can make a reasonable life here, that's good.
So out of what you just said, serve the population. Right? So that's, you know, is that something that would be worth, you know, adding into this or not? I don't know. I'm just trying to, I know this, like I said, this is always the most difficult part of our, every time we do this, it's so hard. So I'm just trying to find ways that maybe you guys.
Well, it's
see this.
interesting, Corey, because you said serve the population, but really, I believe staff do that also. It's you're public servants and all, right? So you're doing it because the same, right? Yeah. So maybe you're right. Maybe put something like that into it.
I think we have to really think about how we're defining the sort of the population. Because when I think about population and this one talks about citizens, I'm thinking about ratepayers and a lot of our opportunities and everything's about economic development and tourism. So I think we have to make sure that the wording or how we describe the people includes the people that are visiting the community. So we have to be, we had that recently with something else we were doing and trying to be very careful that we are not making it just about ratepayers, that it's about people in our community.
Just the inclusiveness, right? Yeah.
It's about businesses and it's about families. Remember when we did the North Frontenac Astronomy Park, we changed the logo to add the kid so we could look at families, because that's what we really want. So
If you're bored someday, just go on the internet and Google for other mission statements and vision statements. Know when you went to school, if you copied someone else's work, it was plagiarism and it was not a good thing. In strategic planning, it's called following best practice, and you're encouraged to do it. By the way, in a similar session with another municipality, one of the vision statements they came up with, we are better than Muskoka. They decided not to go with it.
Well, I like Nike's mission statement. Have you ever read Nike's mission statement? No, it was destroy Adidas.
May have been an internal model. Yep. You're not joking.
The one for IBM was think. Right? The one for TED Talks was spread ideas. Right? Very succinct.
We're going to move on to values. Here we're doing things, whoops, we're not going to do that. Here we did things a little bit differently with the values. Again, on the left, we've got what makes a great value statement. And you will get all of this information in the proceedings report afterwards, so you don't have to write it all down. Instead of coming up with what we thought were good examples of value statements, we came up with 3 very different styles of how you can do value statements. The first one on the talk on the right is Kellogg's. That's the very traditional style. You just have one word values. Sometimes you add a phrase afterwards to define it a little bit. The one on the left, Google. Well, Google is Google. Now, this is dated. I don't think they use this anymore. It's from some time ago. Those were not easy to come up with. You can sort of presume that they would have had a lot of discussions with their staff to come up with those things. Some I like great just isn't good enough. That's an interesting vision statement. Fast is better than slow. You don't need to be at your desk to need an answer. But I'm sure that they had a lot of input from that. It probably took them quite a long time to develop something like that. The next one is one which I have not seen used anywhere else except with Cox Automotive. Cox Automotive you probably don't recognize, but if I say Auto Trader, Kelly's Blue Book, Cox Automotive is a publisher. They publish those documents. So they broke it into three parts: the why, the hows, and the whats. The why can actually be a vision statement or a mission statement. Empower people today to build a better future for the next generation. The hows, do the right thing, always. I think it's interesting how they worded that. To me, it's much more powerful to say do the right thing always than to say always do the right thing. Exactly the same words, but it's just different the way you put them together. Lead by example, bring out the best in everyone, make a little music, which doesn't actually fit with the style of the others, but do it all in the spirit of Cox. And then the what's, they get into some fairly specific actions. Again, in a non-scientific analysis, you find that roughly half of the strategic plans that we look at do not have value statements. A lot of clients will look at it and say, well, it's just motherhood. Like it's not really distinguishing us from anybody else. Others will say, no, our value statements are a very important expression of who we are. So on the right is it what you have for your current value statements.
You know, so my career is quite varied. And years ago, I worked for the Ministry of Housing, and they were trying to hire a new executive. And one of the interview questions was, who's your favorite person? You have 10 minutes to tell me why and what influence they have. And they were picking Dr. Spock and Captain Kirk and at the time Pierre Trudeau and John Kennedy. I would have picked a survey party chief I had in Northern Ontario. He taught me more with 4 examples that I screwed up. And 50 years later, I've not forgotten. And you know, the great isn't good enough. We were surveying and we've been laying out head frames where a 16th of an inch made life and death decisions. And we were laying out this time a change house. I knew we could be out 6 inches. This 1/4 inch is good enough. And I could still see that man coming across the snow, shaking his fist at me and says, no, close is not good enough. Because everybody that comes after you and relies on that statement is going to go close is good enough. You will not start there. You don't forget things like that. Well, obviously I haven't anyway. So, you know, there's some others. The No Iron Team, I remember that one. And Never Give Up. Remember that one. There's another one, but I forget that one.
What are your thoughts on your current value statement?
I like it, but I'd like to see the word inclusion added somewhere in there, maybe under respect. That's a big word right now.
Could fit under several of them. It could fit under strong ethics too.
I love how it's got under teamwork too. It's got the volunteers included in that and the businesses. That's awesome. It's really showing a community a vision statement for the whole community, really. It's not just municipal council and staff, but for the community and some responsibility as well. I like that.
If we added the word inclusiveness somewhere in there. You know, I'm sort of toying with the idea of using the word indigenous, but I think that's probably not here. We have a fairly large indigenous population in the area. No, just inclusiveness would cover it.
Inclusiveness will cover it. And also, if you're going to have a brief section on who you are, it can be mentioned in there. Generally satisfaction with the value statements?
I think we should have something in there about financial sustainability or something. Like we have nothing about using people's money in a good way or to provide services and things like that. In strong ethics, I really feel like honesty and respect are part of that. So I think we've really got a lot of strong ethics with your respect and honesty and that kind of stuff, but we haven't really talked about being sustainable or financially sustainable, things like that, which I think are really important.
You had mentioned that the climate change was a big issue for you. What about adding a value on sustainability in terms of financial, environmental? Does that do it?
Maybe that's where inclusive comes in. I think we're very close with this. We just need to tweak it a bit. I like this. And this is done X number of years ago. We're now 2023 looking forward. Sorry, go ahead.
Under a positive attitude, being pleasant. I'm sure we can find another word for that. It's just doesn't seem professional to me.
About approachable. Because I was thinking like you come in the front and you meet two clerks. And they always have a smile, at least for me they do, so maybe there's a reason for that. But it's always nice to see that. And we don't have automatic automated attendant and whatever. It's personal. You come in, you get a warm body to talk to, who is always friendly. So maybe those words get in there somewhere too. Sociable, friendly.
Just like you're saying, if you think about it, how many municipalities do you call right now where you have somebody actually answering the phone? Honestly, right? So you're absolutely right, Mayor.
And they always do their best to help you.
And there's no message there's no preamble saying, please be polite or we'll hang up.
I think one of your strengths was friendly, approachable staff.
I think I like to see this. Sorry, did you say friendly and approachable? I think the word professional needs to be in there.
Some of them. Well, if you had,
Sorry, what?
you took a group of words, courteous, friendly, approachable, competent.
No, or maybe
professional.
knowledgeable. I'd like, because they are. Like, that word's not used well enough.
Well, the word professional pretty well describes all that, though.
Yeah, but now that I've said it out loud, it sounds kind of boring. I like knowledgeable better.
Put to bang my head on the desk.
Well, we could spend the rest of the day and most of the evening working on your statements. What I'm going to suggest is, as the consultants will go away and we'll work with Corey and his staff on coming up, I think, with a vision statement that incorporates 4 seasons, more reasons into it somehow, a reworked mission statement and a tweaked value statement. But we will also welcome any suggestions from anybody in this room, your friends, your family, your acquaintances, if they come up with brilliant ideas. You know, one client who came back from meeting in a restaurant and their mission statement became that municipality's mission statement with very minor tweaking. So when you're out, pay attention.
I'm just looking at Port Moody's, that we really liked. So they don't have a section on a value statement, but the mayor talks about it addresses it in her, her little preamp there at the beginning. So you don't necessarily have a section in it, but it could be in your note. Yeah, it's really done well here.
Actually, Capitol Park did Port Moody's, so. We were supposed to go for a coffee break at 2:00. Sorry, we're a little bit late. When we come back, one of the most important tasks of the day is working on what the strategic priorities are going to be for the next 4 or 5 years. So stoke up on the coffee and the refreshments. 10-minute break. We're in the home stretch. And we will be finished by 4. Well, we can work towards that too. But this is where the rubber hits the road. This is where you take everything you've done up until today and you have to work on what are going to be your strategic priorities for the next 4 or 5 years. As was pointed out this morning, some of them will go beyond. But most importantly, next election, you'll be evaluated on how much you accomplished on the priorities you set today. Question was asked at your council meeting as to who actually drives the priorities. Is it the ratepayers? Or is it the council? Is it the staff? Well, hopefully it's not the special interest groups. You're the leaders in the community, so you should have your finger on the pulse and know what the community needs. We go through the stakeholder engagement activities with the survey and the focus groups and the town hall meetings, just as a check to make sure that everything's in alignment, because it should be. And if it's not, we have another planning session a month where we come back and we discuss it. I talked a little earlier today about the fact that sometimes something can get sidetracked by a special interest group or the squeakiest wheel. So we need to be on the lookout for that. But for the most part, you want to make sure that what you decide on in the next hour and a half are the right priorities, that it does match with what the community is looking for. But you're also showing leadership so that if you know that your dikes aren't going to protect you in case of a 100-year storm, that you don't ignore it. You do the things that need to be done. So strategic priorities, typically these should be the 3 to 6 most important objectives that you're going to have for the next few years. Recognizing that you aren't going to get everything done over that time period. I know another municipality, they put in place a 10-year plan to rehabilitate all of their roads, because that's how long it takes in a rural municipality. In fact, that might be ambitious. It might take more than 10 years. There are some things, though, that you will be able to get done over a few years, although we caution you, if you're coming up with a long list of things that you can do in a short period of time, you probably are being too operational and not strategic enough. If you come up with a list of things that you can just check off, you're probably not being strategic. So up on the screens, you've got what makes good strategic priorities. When I say 3 to 6, don't be too worried if you come up with more than that at the start, because as we discuss it, you often find you can combine some of them. So, what makes good strategic priorities? And I apologize, this slide can be confusing. I'll explain to you how it came about. This is for the Transportation Association of Canada. On the left, you see 5 different titles. Those actually came from the American equivalent of the Canadian, the Transportation Association of Canada. And when they first saw those, they said that they got it. Those are the 5 that we want. But then as they started discussing and working their way through, they said, well, wait a minute. Safety and security first, that's different than workforce development. Like one is a principle and the other is an action. And so as they worked their way through it, they decided that they liked those 5 as areas of focus. I'm sorry, they took those 5 and turned them into focus areas that you'll see on the right-hand screen. In those focus areas, they then developed their strategic priorities, and they sort of almost became like a matrix. So if you're stuck on coming up with a priority and you don't know how to word it or how to phrase it, think of that, then try to come up with some focus areas, and we can turn them into strategic priorities later. So we're going to break into small groups again. Each group should come up with between 3 and 6. And like I said, don't be too concerned if you go over that at the start, because you'll likely find that we can combine them. There's no such thing as plagiarizing. If you saw some good strategic priorities in those strategic plans that you looked at this morning, by all means, copy them. And sometimes you're going to find, just like we found with the SWOT analysis, that things will fit under more than one category. You may have some specific actions that fit under more than one strategic priority. The baskets, the strategic priorities, those are the big overarching things. There's then specific actions that go underneath each of one of those. And some of those specific actions will fit into more than one basket. So I said we'd be out of here by 4, possibly earlier. We're going to ask the small groups to report back at 3. That'll give us some time to take it up, do a few housekeeping items, and still be out of here at 4 o'clock or earlier. I'd like to get you into groups where you work with somebody you have not worked with before. So, and I'd like to have a mixture of counselors and staff in each group. So, Fred, you haven't worked with Roy yet today, have you? And have you worked with Corey? You have. Who have you, which staff have you not worked with? Brooke? That's group 1. Vernon, who have you not worked with today? Have you? Have you worked with Kelly or Eric? Yeah. Worked with? Okay. Sorry, which 2 have you not worked with? I have not worked with Eric. You're working with Kelly and Eric. Sorry, somebody has to work together the second time, so you're group 2. And anyone I haven't named, you're group 3. Okay. So you're off and running.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for coming back. Last hour. Okay, so last out, first in, whatever that economic rule was. So last group back in. You guys are up.
Okay. So the first one we put down was vibrant and prosperous community. And then we had kind of a couple sub points. You want all of that? Okay, I'm going to be slow. And under that, we had support economic and business growth and enhance 4 seasons tourism vibrancy. Enhance four-season tourism vibrancy. And the second one we had was explore funding sources and invest wisely into critical long-term infrastructure. And then there could be several subpoints, but our main priority for this was roads, bridges. And three, we had healthy, vibrant, progressive community. That's kind of similar to the other one, but we had different reasonings for underneath of it. We'll see. Progressive community. And under that, we had cost-effective housing. Monitor, encourage. And support local health services. And recreation, events, arts, and culture. And the last one we had was resilient natural environment. And we had advanced climate change mitigation and adaptation. Adaptation.
That's it. Perfect. Okay. Number, whoever you guys, one, yes. Number one?
So we were
Two.
number
Oh,
one.
you guys were number one. Yeah, I know. So we're gonna go with
Okay.
number one. We're
So
gonna save you guys for
we actually
last.
had very similar of the four headings, slightly different, but very similar. Under the healthy community, what we called healthy community, which they had something like that. So the third one, we had services for seniors there. And under the one about the environment, we had the climate change stuff, but we also had invasive species. And we had lake protection and natural resource protection.
What do you mean by life protection?
Lake protection.
Oh, lake protection. I thought you said life protection. I'm like,
And under healthy communities, the number 3 one that was more about health stuff, we had emergency services as well. Under the infrastructure one, we had the roads and bridges. We had we expanded a bit farther into boat launches, municipal buildings, and cemeteries.
Roughly?
Basically, they were slightly different titles, but basically the same.
Just out of pure curiosity, what were your titles? Just,
So vibrant and prosperous communities. That one we may have cheated slightly because Brooke was in our group and then she left. Then we had environment, just environment.
okay.
And then we had healthy community. So the number 3
Number
one.
3. Yeah.
We didn't have the vibrant and whatever, we just had healthy communities. And then we called the other one infrastructure.
Wow. Yeah.
No. Do you remember when you went to school and eventually you learned to look in the back of the textbook and you found the answers?
All right. So we cheated because like, look at that one. So that was group 2, right? So I sort of cheated because I was in the room. And this is what they came up with: is economic prosperity, sustainable core services, vibrant, prosperous community, resilient natural environment, and sustainable governance.
What does the sustainable governance mean?
Innovative services, choice, sustainable infrastructure for community, sustainable revenue.
And just for fun, can you just repeat all of that again? With the mic this time?
So sustainable revenue for our future needs. Sustainable infrastructure for the community. Innovative and efficient service delivery. And lastly, an employer of choice.
Pardon me?
What's under there?
Oh, economic prosperity?
Ensure that our people can afford to work or live in our communities and accommodate tourism and tourists. Under vibrant communities.
Vibrant and prosperous. Same as economic prosperity?
So we had put like affordable housing and health under the vibrant and prosperous community.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't, they had exactly the same words. Yeah. 3 times.
They all looked in the back of the text.
I am curious, how did you end, 3 groups ended up with exactly the same words? Has that been talked about before?
No, I think we're all on the same page.
Oh, is it one of the other plans? Now I know, okay. Because I'm easily confused, I just want to see if we could match up what we have here with what we have here. So vibrant and prosperous community? I can figure that one out on my own. Economic prosperity. Is that different or is that part of this?
I think maybe Title I should be economic prosperity because 3 is kind of the same title as 1, but 1 is kind of more geared towards economic development than it is community development.
Agreement? Economic development or prosperous? Economic prosperity. Sustainable core services. Infrastructure? No, infrastructure is different than certain. Infrastructure
think you
includes
could
services
say-
and physical.
Yeah, so I think that would be the same because we talked about roads and fire and just connectivity and you know, that's where we would fit in how we're dealing with growth, right?
But they're also saying services, so it's more than just your physical infrastructure.
I think it would fit in.
Just call it infrastructure?
When we were discussing sustainable core services, we were talking about managing growth. So not only our infrastructure, our roads and the ability to get people in and out, but also the services such as fire emergency, community services that we provide our residents. So it's the whole package. I think it's a combination of 2 and both number 2s.
Could you call number 2 infrastructure and then just have our title as a point under? Oh, okay.
Should we call it sustainable infrastructure?
But then the services are. To me, infrastructure is like the physical infrastructure, the roads, the buildings, et cetera. But then we have the sustainable services.
A lot of the services are under healthy, vibrant, number 3. If you kind of look there, there's fire and services and things like.
Infrastructure is commonly thought of as being physical infrastructure. But sometimes it's thought of as being both physical and services. If we say sustainable physical infrastructure, and then you've got the services under here, does that work? Okay, people will know. They'll know when they see the bullets. Resilient natural environment. You copied that out of another one, didn't you? You guys are good. So the big difference is sustainable governance. Only the one group had that. Does it fit in with the other 4, or should it be a 5th bullet or a 5th pillar? My parents wanted me to be a doctor, and I didn't, but I got a doctor's handwriting. Sustainable revenue for future needs, sustainable infrastructure for the community, innovative and efficient service delivery, and employer of choice.
Few of those points are covered in some of the others already, right? So the infrastructure one's already covered in But I mean, there's some of those points are not, so it could, I think it could still be one, but just have to remove the ones already covered in the other one.
So I took out sustainable infrastructure. Which other one could come out? Innovative.
So the other 2 points might be able to be incorporated into one of the 4 possibly.
Sustainable revenue and employer of choice.
We could, depending what you mean by employer of choice, we could add issues there about professional educated staff, and we had that before. I mean, we're not gonna, the last thing we want to hear is problems with our staff or counselors. So it's important that the staff become, they're always knowledgeable. We keep allowing them to update themselves, and, you know, so they're on the top of the game at all times.
I think that's how we kind of got to that, because I started, thinking about the budget and the items in the budget, and to me, these points all have to fit somewhere, like where we're spending dollars has to fit somewhere in one of these categories. So that's how we got to the governance, because I was thinking about, staff and training and all of those pieces. So that's how we got to the governance.
I think it's council training too, though. So important that our counselors get off to those conferences and workshops, and there's a lot of good information there. So staff, very important, but so was good educated council too, and up to date. It's good. It's money well spent for this.
This appears to be a standalone strategic priority, which we give you 5, which is fine. Everyone comfortable with those 5? It's remarkable how much similarity there was. Have we got the right actions?
So I'm comfortable. So I do have a couple, I can't really see that from here, but we talked about, pardon? No, what's from at the boat launches and stuff, invasive species, and we talk, I'm just trying to figure out when you guys discuss that as a group, kind of where you see the township as being part, that's all. I'm just, like, is all of this within our realm of what things we can do about it, or is there stuff there that we've got into that really nothing? Like invasive species is a good example of how would the township intervene with that, or what could we, is it just supporting efforts, provincial efforts, or cottage association efforts, or is it? That's all there was another one right by that one too, but I'm just not sure.
Yeah, I'm not, like, where we have the environment, I don't know if in our strategic plan, we have to go down to that low of a level and say, we're going to, get rid of invasive species. That comes with the work plan later. Maybe it would be something in the future that something brings up, and then it lines up to our strategic plan. Okay, we're going to work on boat launches, and it lines up to better lake quality or whatever. I don't think we need to be that detailed, Corey. Maybe that's how I would do it.
Same time, we don't control what happens in the water. We think we can, or we can promote what happens on the shore, but the water is their federal jurisdiction. So as a small municipality, we do not have the resources or the expertise to have a major impact on what happens. So maybe that the words invasive species shouldn't even be in this and keep it more generic.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that it's in the strategic plan at all.
Right.
Right. We may come up with a program that we're going to educate residents by putting a flyer in the tax bill or something about invasive species, right?
Right.
But it doesn't need to be in the strategic plan.
I agree.
I think for now, I'm going to leave it here just as a reminder that this is what you're looking for, but I agree, it's getting specific. The other thing is we need to do quite a bit of work on the way we structure the sentences. Because right now we just have some nouns and we don't have any action verbs.
I want to make sure we don't get too far in the weeds when we do our strategic plan.
This has come together very nicely. Is there, people are comfortable with it? Keeping in mind, we're going to get together in about a month to have another crack at it. But as a first cut,
Do we have a date for the next meeting?
I have November 1st, but it may just be me.
We did talk about that, but we haven't brought anything to council yet about November 1st, but I think.
When
we
is
did-
deer hunting? The week after, right?
Yeah, the week after that. So I think we did talk November 1st. We just haven't got there. I guess we should, when can we decide that now, Tara, or when can we? Probably, I don't think we'll get to budget this in November, will we, Kelly? I don't think so.
No, so our intent was not to start budgeting till strategic plan was completed, so.
Central Frontenac on the 31st. So preferably the first, if not the first, the second or the third.
Right now, Eric, the 31st is the annual health and safety training.
Good question. I don't know. It depends on how quickly we come up with mission and vision statements. Right now, I would think probably not a full day.
And I think, sorry, I think we're trying to keep it in line similar to Central Frontenac. That was part of us tendering together for some efficiencies in travel and such. So I don't know if, I know Stephanie can't make the first, but we have two other counselors that weren't able to make, or one makes part of it and one not make it at all to this session. So
missing. So the 27th, we have one staff missing and one counselor missing. Vernon. First is just one counselor. As far as we know, I mean, there's two other counselors not here to advise. And I don't know when John's leaving for his.
We like to reserve the entire day with the expectation that we will probably finish early. We haven't yet had a client complain if we finished early.
$63 respondents so far at this point. Well, about, well, 2,200 permanent approximately.
And there's typically a bit of a bump when you have the public meetings and the focus groups, especially if you get it out in your social media to raise the awareness. When would you like to close the survey? If we're going to meet on the 27th, we like to get a report out to you at least a week ahead, which would be the 20th, and we need time to analyze it. So if you back it up, it'd be closed somewhere around the 13th. Is that reasonable?
I must feel like we said October 6th, did we not? I think
so.
I think we put I think we told the public October 6th. Pretty sure we did.
Even better, because it's more time to analyze it.
If everyone could just remember to use the mics, just to people.
Sorry, so if, for example, if you wanted to attend the Saturday, September 30th one for lake landholder and cottage associations, the only option is to be here in person?
Yes, that's correct. They're all in person meeting. There is one virtual town hall. The rest is all in person.
Which one is the virtual town hall? The one on Thursday or Saturday?
The third one that's not on the original
Thursday
notice.
night. Thursday night is the virtual. So this Thursday.
I know that you prefer that the counselors of the mayor be at some of these, so we see what's going on. It's been my experience, depending on how many people attend, if we're there, then there's a tendency to look to the representative from the council to ask or answer a lot of the questions. And it's really hard to stay out of the question and answer period if you can. And I did the one for the county in Charbot Lake, and there was 3 people there. That was, you know, I made the 4th. And one of the other 3 was a township employee, so it was really difficult. You know, having 63, so it sounds like 6 or 10 in a session, that's good.
So the focus groups too, I just checked with Caitlin. So we have 1 or 2 for each focus group now as well. So again, we're not getting the 10 for the focus groups at this point, but 1 or 2 so far. They've still got a little bit of time, and we've advertised it like crazy. So I'm not sure what else we do, but that's about where we're at with the focus groups.
It's disappointing that there aren't more, but the fact that you've given people the opportunity and they chose not to avail themselves of it, I think that still does some good. That people can't say that you didn't give them the opportunity. In terms of the public meetings, we're usually pretty good at deflecting the questions away from the counselors, and we don't expect the entire council to be there. But if there's one or two that can be there, it shows that council is invested in the process and there to hear what people have to say.
Well, I buy that for sure. September 30th, where's the other one?
So
Yeah.
there's a town hall here on Thursday from 2:30 to 4:30, and then a virtual town hall from 6 to 8 on Thursday. Saturday, there's a town hall from 1 to 3.
Yeah, I got it, 2:30 to 3:30 township office.
And we'll have one or two managers at each session as well, just to show support.
Thursday, 2:30 to 4:30. Here. And then on Saturday, 1 to 3 at Claremont Hall. I agree, the optics are well worth it.
Just an FYI, the North Frontenac Lake Association wanted to be involved in a focus group, but they're out of province, or at least the president is. So we're doing it virtually. But he did advise me that they have also drafted their own strategic plan for the Lake Association. So it'll be interesting to see how compatible it is with what the township is coming up with.
Thank you for that, yeah. It will be.
We missed the 3:30 deadline.
We're close.
But thank you very, very much. Suzanne and I learned a lot. We had a good time. And we think this was a very productive session. We hope you do as well. Thank you very much for your input, your participation.
Thank you for coming. We appreciate it. We really do. Now we can finish the meeting. I guess we have to get out of it, right? Confirmatory bylaw 6523.
Moved by Counselor Hudel, second by Counselor Hermer, be resolved that bylaw 6523 being a bylaw to confirm all actions and proceedings of council for its special meeting held September 26, 2023, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Comments? In favor of the motion? Carried. Adjournment?
Moved by Counselor Hermer, second by Counselor Hudel, be it resolved that council adjourns the meeting at 3:35 PM until October 13th, 2023 at the call of the chair. The council sets the next strategic planning session for October 27th, 2023 at 9:00 AM.
Any comments? In favor? Motion's carried. Thank you, everyone. Drive safe, folks.